The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hey, what's up? This is Jeff Cobb, and you're listening to Keepin It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy, Donovan, and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll review Windy City Riot and cover all its news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get the network's podcast over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Chop Tea store, chop-tees.com/KI Strong Style, so you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style merchandise. There's free shipping on every order and 10% off your first order, chopped-tees.com/KI Strong Style. And if you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Young boy, how you doing, man?
I'm hanging in there. I'm not feeling my best tonight, but we're gonna do the show anyways. I don't think you gave me a rundown.
Thought I shared it with you earlier. Let me share it again real quick.
On the air.
While I'm doing that, make sure you guys go to socialsuplex.com to check out the new newsletter that's going to be dropping bi-weekly. There will be a new issue of the newsletter dropping this week. So lots of great content in there, featured articles, a lot of news pieces from around the world. And the best part about it, it is free, no paywall, no paying to subscribe. All the news and details are in there. Lots of great stuff. So be on the lookout for that. I believe on Wednesday, the new issue will be coming up. You can subscribe via email. You get an email notification when that drops.
No paywall.
That's right. Free.
For now.
Yeah. So, yeah, check that out. Get your scoops. All right. Well, let's talk about Windy City Riot. And before we do that, shout out to everybody who came impromptu to the fan meetup. It's kind of up in the air whether we're doing something official or not. And kind of day of, we kind of sent out some messaging, and we had a good amount of people that were coming in and out of there. Of course, friends of the show, Chris Samsa, Phil Lindsay, were out there. Dex, loyal listener to all the shows here on the network, was out there. And then there were some people from last year. There's some people I hadn't met before. A few listeners of the show were there and talking how much they loved the show. So that was cool. There was a gentleman there in a wheelchair named Hector. He was really cool to talk to. Sent me a nice message on Facebook the next day, just thanking for putting the meetup together and being so friendly. So shout out to Hector and everybody else that showed up to the meetup.
Yeah, I got there a little late, so I didn't talk to anybody. I saw people grabbing Jeremy, taking fan photos, thanking him for putting everything together. I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, bitch, I sent these messages out. Why are you thanking Jeremy for it? If it wasn't for me, this shit wouldn't even, I put this shit together. No, I'm just playing. Jeremy, you're always better at interacting with people. It's kind of funny because I think sometimes people are always thinking that because I'll say whatever the fuck that I'm the more outgoing one, but you're certainly the more outgoing between the two of us. Like when it comes to like interacting with regular people,
Regular people.
well, like people in life,
Yeah.
you know, that aren't on a camera behind, you know, audio equipment with headphones in our head. Like you're very much more more outgoing one between the two of us. I'm very much more the, what's the word called?
Introverted.
Yeah. Introverted, which, you know, I don't think people always think that, but it's absolutely true. But yeah, I saw you hobbing and knobbing and, you know, rubbing elbows with the people. There's a dude dressed like a Inoki.
Yeah, we almost got slapped, you know.
I wanted to set that part of it up. If he's listening, if you want to do some public, you know, assault next year, and you know, maybe get charges, maybe not. We can't promise anything. It's public place, but you know, you want to slap a few folks, have at it.
Yeah, and I think the owner, I couldn't tell if he was happy or not.
They're not happy.
We were there because like it was that black dude that kind of kept going like back and forth. And
they're not happy.
Like we showed up at the bar area, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, y'all come over to this couch area. Y'all can sit here, order food." And like I didn't really see that many people ordering food, and so I feel like he wasn't, you know, quite happy, you know, that we weren't ordering a bunch of stuff.
I did. I ordered a overpriced $20 flatbread. And I ordered a few drinks, and I said I wanted well, but they gave me not well. And yeah, that ticket was much more than I expect, like way more than I expected it to be. I was kind of surprised. This is like a very hoity-toity sort of well-to-do business kind of, you know, it's the kind of place that people in downtown Chicago who are like in very like probably prominent business sort of situations go to have happy hour on a rooftop bar after the weekend is over on a Friday night, you know, like, so the women that are showing up, they're like dressed in like nice dresses. Dudes got their, you know, collared shirts on and a blazer, and they're all smelling nice. They all look good. They're there to mingle and to drink and whatnot. And then you got a bunch of Shinihan freaks in their fucking Naito t-shirts and
me in the full tracksuit.
Yeah, Jeremy in the full tracksuit.
Got a Noki in the back corner.
And like they're always asking you, you know, you're not supposed to be there because they're asking you weird questions. Like, you got a reservation or are you just walking in? Like, like it's the pauses. Like, are you sure you were supposed to be here? And it's like, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. And, you know, like places like that, when you have that many people show up, you're supposed to like
call ahead. Yeah.
Call ahead, and not only call ahead, but like sign a contract, rent a space, and, you know, all that. And it's like, nah, we're going to get some drinks and we're going to dip. But they should be used to it. They're across the street from Wintrust. You know what I mean?
Right. Also, C2E2 was there that weekend. So there was a bunch of cosplay anime people up there as well. So I mean, they're in a prime location for like when these conventions and sporting events happen.
Last year was I don't know, I missed the first hour because it wasn't my fault. I just my plane landed and I was an hour away from the location, so I went straight to my hotel and then drove straight over. But got there around 5ish. The thing opened at like what, 4?
Yeah.
So you've been there like an hour, and I feel like there was more people there for the show this time than there was last year. But last year, everyone was kind of in a central kind of congregated area, like interacting. This time it was more like there was a lot of people and they're kind of spread out doing their own thing. So like, I didn't go up to everybody and be like, yo, I'm Josh Smith, the young boy. Welcome. I didn't do any of that shit. I didn't know anybody. So I just migrated. And plus it took forever to get my food and my drinks. So by the time like I was fed and dranked, like I just came over, hung out with you, Samsa, Phil Lindsay, my dog Dex. I made some off-color jokes. I hope Phil Lindsay doesn't, you know, think too poorly of me now, because I feel like I've sullied the reputation of Keeping It Strong Style.
Man.
But yeah. But I saw people pulling you being like, oh, Jeremy, thanks for doing this. and they're taking photos with you. And I was like, go get him, Jeremy. You're doing it. You're doing it for us.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a fun time at the meetup. And then of course, yeah, we walked over to the Wind Trust for Windy City Riot. We were a little late getting to the building, so we did miss the opening matchup, the pre-show match. But we were there for the main card, the main stuff.
We were there. But here's the thing, bro. Like last time, those pre-show matches happened like right before they went on air. So it was like those pre-show matches were basically part of the show, and then they just kept rolling. Like there was maybe a couple minute break, and then they played the music, and then they did the promo video. This time, like we did miss those matches because they happened like way before the rest of the show. And we had time to like get drinks, get food, sit down, mingle, talk to a few people. I mean, there was like 30 minutes between, that's not our fault. That's a decision that New Japan decided to make there.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, we were still, we were having fun over at the View rooftop before I walked over there. So, I mean, not the end of the world, but yeah, still.
I expected them to just have the pre-show matches like right before the other match, just like in Japan. Like, you have the Young Lion opener. It's not like, I mean, this is not the Rambo on 1-4 that you do an hour. It's not that. Like, I don't know why they had the matches so early or whatever.
Yeah. And then for attendance, so this year there was a reported attendance on Cage Match of 4,674. So that is down from last year's reported attendance of 6,028, and up from 2022, which was 2,277. So last year, same building. 2022 was a different building. 2022 was that Ospreay Moxley main event. Last year, the Moxley Naito main event, and of course this year it was advertised Goto Umino as the main event, but then. When we get to the show and they're playing the match order, we get double main evento, and Tanahashi and Takeshita end up being the real main event this year.
I mean, we always knew that was the real. I mean, you look at all the promotional material and it's all Tanahashi all over the shit, and it's his final U.S. date. So you kind of knew that even if he didn't go on last, he was kind of the main event. But I was surprised by that. I didn't expect them to actually main event the show. Because it's so rare that another match goes on last over the IWGP World title. But yeah, it was interesting. I do think last year was, before I get to that, I think both numbers are pretty good, especially considering like New Japan, very often they don't always do 4,600 plus 4,700 even domestically. So I think that in the States to do a number like that, even though it's a little bit lower than what they did last year, it's still a pretty strong number. And I do feel like the big difference here is the strength of that main event last year. Like Mox was still kind of riding high on his popularity, and him coming over was challenging for the title for the first time was a big deal. Plus, I mean, Naito, I feel like that most of that fell on Naito more than anything else. Because how many times has Naito ever main evented in the States with the title? Like, I don't think that, I could be wrong, but I don't think that had happened before.
Yeah, I think, Naito singles matches in the States are very rare. I mean, just a States appearance from him in general is very rare. So yeah, a singles match, title match against Moxley, I think was definitely a great draw. And plus, I mean, there were some, former WWE names like Matt Riddle and Nick Nemeth that could have drew in some casual fans as well. And I feel like there was just more high-profile singles matches last year.
Yeah, Mustafa Ali putting asses in seats,
Yeah, Chicago native.
Viva Van.
So that was good. I didn't know, speaking of fans, like there were some fans behind us where like there was like one of them was a New Japan fan. The rest of them were like WWE wrestling fans, and like
they were super, super duper WWE wrestling fans. Like one of the dudes, but they were like diehard wrestling fans, just not diehard New Japan. They didn't know what the fuck anything was. Like, oh, the funniest. I don't want to step on your lead. You tell me what you thought the funniest thing that happened with them was.
Well, the one dude was like, realized it was Friday. It's like, oh, we're missing SmackDown.
The dude behind us is like, he's like, oh shit, SmackDown's on. And then what I thought was the funniest was they're in the middle of a match and they're doing the 10 count and they get to 10 and they're like, oh shit. And then it goes 11 and like, the fuck? And the dude's like, he's like, they go to 20, it's different. And the whole entire row, but it was just their row. Nobody else reacted. And just them. They're like, oh,
yeah.
The dude behind us was dressed like X-Pac.
Yeah.
Like in full X-Pac garb regalia. He had tights on and kick pads and the headband. And I was like, why the fuck did you wear that tonight? Like
to a New Japan. I understand, Liger in the front row and Inoki at the meetup, but Sean Waltman, 6-pack.
Yeah, that dude. I mean, it might, be appropriate to have been like Lightning Kid, best of the Super Juniors, alumni, but yeah, I don't think X-Pac ever worked Shinihan, so that was weird. But yeah, it was definitely interesting crowd. I mean, there was definitely a lot of really diehard New Japan fans there that were super into a lot of things, but it's also Chicago, so there's a mix of audience that was, there that night.
Yeah. We had a question from Def Triangle 720. He says, what were your thoughts on the presentation and feel of the show? Do you think these Friday Strong events are working?
Well, I mean, I guess that's an interesting question because, I mean, how do you characterize, like, when you say, like, these, when he says these Friday Night Strong people, is like, what do you mean by you people? Like, like, what are you saying?
Well, I think he's talking about, I feel like most of these strong shows are on Fridays. So
right.
This show, I think Resurgent, will probably be on a Friday as well. So, I mean, for the most part, I think they are working based off the attendance numbers. Like we mentioned this year, a little bit lower than last year. But if any U.S. company can draw over 4,000 in a building, I think it's a good night. From that standpoint, I think it's working.
I mean, like, I don't know. I don't want to belabor the talking points because we can do the whole review of what strong is, what its purpose is. Like we've had that conversation. I don't know. Maybe you always want to be on the show understanding that there's probably people listening that haven't heard you before and that sort of thing. But like, I just feel sick to death talking about New Japan Strong anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
How many times do I have to talk about whether it's working, whether it's not, what its purpose is, what its place is? Like, it just is what it is.
Yeah. And as far as like the presentation, I mean, we were there live. I have not gone back and watched the TV version. But I mean, live, it seemed fine. It seemed like a normal kind of strong setup. And
I mean, when you compare the authenticity of the event to like when we went to Dallas a few years back for the first night of G1, it's not the same. But it's also not the most egregiously Western presentation of New Japan that there's ever been. There's been some shows that were basically just independent shows with New Japan, logo on it. I feel like this in 2025 is about the best representation of New Japan that you're going to get in the States. Aside from like, I don't know, the California shows, the stuff on the West Coast, they seem to have the bigger, cerulean blue ring, which is always kind of cool to see. They don't have that in Chicago. They don't have that, over here on the East Coast. But other than that, I mean, they got the music, they've got, they do a lot of the same stuff that you would see in Japan. They obviously tailor the show for a Western audience. I will say this though, with what's going on in the business world, I'm not sure how much more advantageous doing shows in the West is going to be. Don't get me wrong. I don't follow the market or anything. I actually had some lengthy discussions with friend of the show, Fraser Japan, which by the way, we got to get him on here sometime. I don't know. Like he was just on JCast. Like he was on JCast a while ago when I was thinking maybe we should get him on. And then I was like, I don't want to do it at the same time because, kind of stepping on those guys' toes. But then, hold on one second. My dog like knows I'm recording and then he decides to go crazy. 1 second. But no, we had a lengthy discussion about what's been going on in the markets because he's got a background in finance and so do I. So, we chat about that stuff time to time. And I know he was just on JCast, but for their Patreon. And I was like, fuck, like I wanted to have this dude on, but now they got him on. But I'm sure we'll work something out. We'll find a good time to get him on here. But he was kind of telling me a little bit about what's going on over there. I won't break it all down or anything, but one of the key points that I kind of took away from part of our discussion is like, if the yen is strengthening and the dollar is weakening, and I'm not saying it's like overblown yet, but who knows what's going to happen in the future if these trends continue. How much more advantageous is it going to be for New Japan to do stateside shows? Because, part of the benefit was being able to get paid in US dollars and then take that back to Japan. And if that's not going to really be a stronger advantage for them, we might see a tapering down of these. I'm just speculating, but I could see that being a real possibility, especially if, if these tariffs go into effect the way that they're supposed to. And I don't know how that might hypothetically affect putting on a production in the US, but it could.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah. We'll see what the future of these US shows look like going forward. But let's jump into this show. So like we mentioned, we did miss the pre-show match, Strong Survivor match. It was Zane J defeating CJ Tino, and then her post-match, essentially it sounded like Zane J, quote-unquote, relinquished the Strong Survivor spot, and is going to be going to Japan full-time. We have seen him in Japan recently at ringside. He's been training in the Noge Dojo, so sounds like he's going to be going into the dojo full-time and is planning on making his debut in Japan.
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty impressed with the Zane J so far from what I've seen from him. So I think that would be a good move. And there'll be, I don't know, I'm not too big on this Strong Survivor gimmick in the first place because I guess it's sort of similar to some of the issues I have with Strong in theory. And with the proper execution and commitment, it could be something really great, but it always seems to fall flat when they actually follow through with whatever it is that they're trying to do with this sort of gimmick.
Yeah. And we had a question here from Darth Malev, says, thoughts on Zane J going to Noge Dojo full time and what his ceiling might be. I apologize that it's been a while since I've listened to you guys, so I don't remember hearing your thoughts, but from what I've seen, I think he has potential. It's been a while since a foreigner was a full-time young lion in Japan, with the most recent, I believe, being Oscar Lebe. Do you see him being Jay White or current day of Finley levels in terms of ceiling, or something more along the lines of Juice Robinson? No offense to Juice. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think it's hard right now to say, oh, yeah, he's going to be a Jay White. He's going to be a David Finley. I think he does show some promise. Like you mentioned, he does look good in the last few outings he's had. And, I mean, obviously training the dojo full-time is obviously going to be a great thing for him. I think, it's a let it play out kind of thing to see, will this guy, will he become something in Japan? It's hard to tell right now.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen athletically, he's very gifted. And I think mechanically he's pretty sound, but there's still a lot of seasoning that needs to be had. So going to Japan is probably going to be the right move. For most wrestlers going to Japan, if they're not already, Japanese themselves and in Japan, if you're a foreigner, going to Japan is going to be one of the most enriching learning experiences you can have for your craft. So good on him. In terms of comparing him to other, foreign stars that have come up through the dojo, I have no idea like how he'll stack up. It's always I don't think anyone's very good, honestly, at taking a look at what the layout of the dojo is and then trying to prognosticate how they're going to be used and booked and perform in the future. So, it's a guessing game, but, good on him.
Yeah. So then the main card opened up. We had TJP defeating Tom Lawler in 12 minutes and 13 seconds. So obviously no real quote unquote story here, just kind of an exhibition match. TJP still in kind of this quest for wanting to be a heavyweight. So facing a heavyweight star here in Tom Lawler, the longest, strong open weight champion, and gets to win in a pretty good opener.
The thing here, I thought that the opener was good too. I saw some scores and cage match that didn't really align with my experience watching it, but I thought the work was very good. I thought Tom Lawler looks fucking ridiculous. He's wearing the jean shorts, which he always wore jean shorts, but before they were spandex, they were biker trunks to be made to look like jean shorts. And then eventually it was wearing the jean shorts over the biker trunks and taking off the jean shorts to reveal what also appeared to be, jean shorts, but they really weren't. Now he's just full on jean shorts. He has transitioned all the way up to a point where he just doesn't take them off. So he's just working. He's full Cena mode. He's
got suspenders on with it.
Yeah. And he's got suspenders, and the suspenders, the colors don't work. And then he's got kick pads on the bottom. I'm like, what the fuck are you trying to be right now? I think Tom Lawler is a really great wrestler. And I enjoy his shtick, I guess, but I'm also like, what the fuck is going on here? I do think that they booked this because he's one of the only heavyweights that are credible that they would allow TJP to beat clean in a match like this.
Yeah, so next month, probably TJP versus Fred Rosser.
Yeah, there's a certain class of heavyweight that TJP is not going to beat. And that even includes people you probably wouldn't, imagine that he couldn't beat. You'd probably be thinking he could beat Yoshihashi. I'm not sold on that. You know what I mean? He could beat Taichi. I don't know, bro. But he can beat Tom Lawler, a guy who's not really a domestic New Japan star, who's kind of made in the States and everything. He can beat, like you said, like a Fred Rosser. He could beat them. That might give him a little bit of juice, but once you get back to Japan, who's he going to beat? You know what I mean? They don't see him that way.
Yeah. So yeah,
and that's why he's, partially why he's not re-signed.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought this match was good here. TJP getting the Mamba Splash for the win. We had a question here from Barry. He says, do you think New Japan missed something not having Team Filthy in Japan while it was hot and traveled open again? Tom, Kratos, and Danny had a similar vibe to the War Dogs, but I'm puzzled as to what happened with Tom after that G1. Had a good match with Okada, etc. during the tour, but went to an opening strong act. Do you think his look goes against him?
Yeah, probably. I would imagine that that's part of it. But I also don't want to fully speculate on exactly what it is, because I'm sure there's all sorts of things that the office are looking at that we're just not privy to when it comes to decision making like that,
Yeah. And then, I did think that Team Filthy was a great faction on the strong weekly TVs, and we don't really know how that would have translated had they went to Japan. But I don't know. I thought they were good for the time. I think a lot of those guys are still really good. I think JR Kratos was super talented. We don't really see him much more. And obviously World Cast Stricken Crew are still around. Danny Limelight was super talented, but I don't know what really happened to him.
Yeah, I mean, I like Team Filthy for what it was, but I don't think it was an act that would have translated well to Japan. I don't even mean it wouldn't have translated well. I don't think it would have been received by the audience that well, because none of those guys were made domestically in the Japanese audience, or in front of that audience. I mean, we could be wrong. There was pretty good reception in Cork and Hall when they did those strong shows. They seemed to know who the people were, but then again, it was a strong branded event. So you have to imagine that would attract those individuals, you know, domestically that were in fact watching Strong, much in the same way that like Fantasticamania or like Honor Rising used to draw certain sects of the fan base that were familiar. And it's not like it's a monolith. It's not like the Korakuen crowd is always the same 2,000 people in Tokyo going to all these shows.
Yeah, it's always a different set of people depending on the promotion, the brand, the main event. It's not always the same. And so, maybe I think Jared Kratos would have done a good job getting over it because he's big and having him brawl with big guys.
Yes.
I think Danny Limelight, maybe had he been in like a Best of Super Juniors kind of scenario, who knows, maybe he could have gotten over with some of his athleticism.
I actually agree with you. I think every one of those acts individually could have worked in the context of being in Japan, but specifically bringing the unit over and trying to get the unit over as an act, I don't think that would have worked. But I think there was a spot and a place and a way to work each and every one of those guys individually, including world-class Wrecking Crew. And, you know, the one person I don't think I'm sold on is probably Danny Limelight, personally.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good wrestler, but I don't know if he, you know, kind of the same way I feel about like Jacob Austin Young. Like, I don't know if they need him in Japan necessarily, but everybody else, I mean, world-class Wrecking Crew is a great tag team. Kratos, a big guy, you know, who they're always looking for more of him. And, you know, Filthy's awesome. But like like Barry Walsh said, like maybe it was his look. I don't know.
Yeah. So moving on to the next match, we had the NJPW Strong Women's #1 contendership match. Azumi and Mina Shirakawa wrestling to a double countout. And we would learn on social media that this will become a three-way at Resurgence now, with Mercedes defending against Azumi and Mina. Josh, what do you think about the double count out here?
I thought it was not super surprising. I guess it was in a certain way, but to me, I was like, and if you'll recall, I said this at the sports bar, or the rooftop bar, where I was like, they're not going to not have Mina in that match in California. And there was a lot of naysayers. You were amongst them, where you guys were telling me like, well, they already wrestled in January in the Dome. And I'm like, yeah, but it's Mina. And it's like, they're not going to tease a Mina match that could potentially happen, especially with the connections between New Japan and AEW, and just not have her be in the match, you know? And you guys were like, well, Azumi, she's never had a singles match with Mercedes. And I'm like, yeah, but Azumi does not have the live show charisma of a Mina. So to me, the only two things that I thought were realistic here was some sort of scenario where all three, I didn't necessarily think it would be a double count out, although I couldn't rule that out, but I figured it would either wind up being a triple threat match, but I thought that was a pretty high likelihood, honestly, or Mina would just win. If this was Japan, then Azumi winning would make sense, but they're looking to sell tickets for California, and they're not going to sell tickets off of Azumi versus Mercedes. Like, this isn't like when Mercedes first came in and she was still like an attraction just based off the novelty of seeing her for the first time. They actually need an opponent, and Mina is the most marketable of the Japanese women that they're currently using and utilizing. So for reasons.
Yeah, and then also, you know, based on this crowd reaction, also Mina got huge reaction when she came out. Also, she's been on AEW TV several times now, and is actually, you know, she's wrapping up with Stardom. Is going to be going full-time AEW. So, you know, very well known to the U.S. fan base. And then Azumi initially got a fine reaction at first, but once she started working, the fans were like, oh, like, this chick is raw. Let's get behind her. And
I think she won over the audience.
Yeah, so you definitely had to show the speed, show what she can do to win the audience over, whereas most of the audience was initially already into Mina, knew Mina's whole deal, and wanted Mina to win. But then, as the match was going on, the crowd kind of became 50-50 and was getting behind both women. And so it was a very good matchup. They went to the outside and were brawling, and they were doing the whole thing where they were both trying to fight to get back in. They kept pushing each other back to the guardrail. And then also we got the 20 count, and we had the double count out. The crowd was not happy about that. And we had a double count out. Both women will go to face Mercedes.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't thrilled with the idea of the double count out or the execution of it, but I did think that the match was fairly good for what it was. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's a lot of juice in the idea of another Mercedes Azumi triple threat. I know we already did one in Japan with Hazuki, so it does, like, from a purist wrestling standpoint, it does seem like, damn, it would be pretty cool to have Mercedes and Azumi, but you know, I don't know if stateside that makes the most sense in the world, or if there's, you know, a lot of money in that particular matchup. But we're gonna get the Azumi Mina Shirakawa match against Mercedes, and that is a scenario hypothetically where if you wanted to get this title off of Mercedes, very easy to do so without her having to take a pinfall. And that could highly likely be the way that they transition to, like, say, a Mina by having her beat Azumi.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I mean, you could have Azumi, pin a Mina if they want to get that.
They're not going to do it. They're not going to. I mean, I could be wrong, but I really doubt that they're going to put their US based women's title on Azumi.
Yeah. Yeah, Mina's probably the more likely candidate if they do switch the belt. So following that, we had the strong openweight tag team title match. The world-class wrecking crew of Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaacs defeat the intergalactic jet setters of Kevin Knight and Kushida in 11 minutes and 5 seconds.
Yeah, I thought this shit was funny. Sorry about that. I thought this was funny because it's like a couple weeks ago, I saw the Reddit pages. I saw what the fuck was going on. There's a lot of hate for this man, Kevin Knight, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't need him. He wasn't really that good in the first place. Fuck him, blah, blah. You know, AEW raiding New Japan again. Yada, yada, blase, blase. All of a sudden, this man comes out, starts doing Raw shit, and the crowd comes with a different energy, especially after finding out he's going to be in Super Juniors, especially after finding out he's aiming to go to G1 and, you know, that he signed a contract with New Japan and all that sort of jazz. I'm like, no. Like,
where was that energy?
Yeah, where was that? Where he starts doing some cool shit in this match and the crowd's going crazy. And all of a sudden, oh, y'all love Kevin Knight now, right? But y'all didn't love him 2 weeks ago. You know, you find out man signs a contract, gets announced for some dates and does some flips, and all of a sudden you guys are down with Kevin Knight again. And that's not, you can't bandwagon that way. Like, we've been down with Kevin Knight since day one. You know, we never switched up the energy on this guy.
Yeah. And, you know, he looked great in this match. You know, he was doing a lot of his big high flying stuff, the drop kick off the shoulders. They do with him and Kushida, and all their great double team offense. But towards the end here, it was a ref distraction and Royce getting a low blow on Kushida, followed by a German suplex for the pin. So world-class wrecking crew taking a little bit of advantage there to get the pinfall. Also, throughout this match, we had TJP sitting in the aisleway watching the match, eating a bucket of popcorn, and that's where we had Jarrell, I think it was Jarrell or Royce, they took the popcorn from TJP to throw it at Kevin Knight's face, push him off the turnbuckle that led to the low blow and the German finish. And then after that, TJP was pulling on one of the titles on Royce Isaacs, and so seems like they're teasing that TJP will bring a partner to Resurgence to challenge world-class wrecking crew.
Yeah, this was basically Mr. Fuji throwing the salt in Bret Hart's eyes for the WrestleMania 9 finish. I didn't hate the idea that TJP was ringside, but I feel like it's the dumbest fucking way to do it when you have them set up a chair and put it in the aisleway. So that, you know, because it's so unrealistic. And this is a company that typically does a version of realism pretty well. It would have kind of made sense if he'd gotten on the desk to call the match, or if he even just come and sat ringside, but outside of the barrier. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then the camera could have but him just pulling up a chair with a bag of popcorn and he's sitting in the aisleway. It's so telegraphed and kind of hokey.
It's so Monday Night Raw. I
don't even think Monday Night Raw would do it this way. I feel like they would do a better version of this, especially at this current iteration. Like maybe in 1993.
Yeah.
Nah, they were good at it too. I don't think WWE would do this shit. I don't know very many, competent major wrestling companies that would necessarily do it quite this way. Maybe the era of Monday Night Raw would be like that GM era when they were doing really hokey shit.
Yeah, with all guest hosts and stuff.
Yeah, but the match was very good. I sort of thought West Coast Wrecking Crew maybe should just come off the belts.
Well, I thought that was that play, especially with Kevin Knight being dual contracted and being on TV now.
I mean, at this point, it's why not? What's the point? The belts to me don't mean much. I understand that these guys are really hardworking. They chased him. For me, the money was in that chase, but then they finished their story. They pulled a Cody. They got to the top of the mountain and now they're here. The difference is with Cody's story, the whole entire company revolves on, is resting on his back and he's the top star of the company. But these are just the strong tag team titles. They're the fourth most important tag team titles in all of the entire company. So to me, it's these are the ones that we can just be kind of passing around and hot potatoing and doing fun, cool moments that doesn't really matter. We're not going to look back. Let's say these dudes hold it for a year. We're not going to look back and be damn, do you remember that fucking, West Coast Wrecking Crew year-long run? I mean, they beat, Rocky and somebody. They beat, the Jet Setters, legendary shit, and it's not their fault. It's just these are infrequent shows. It's an infrequent brand and it's a belt that doesn't mean that much ultimately.
Yeah. And, kind of opposite to Tom Lawler's run where that was presented more of a top belt. You had a weekly TV. He was having all these great matches, great challengers. And once you had more of a, weekly product, that title seemed bigger. And then you would kind of have these big title matches on pay-per-view. But yeah, with strong shows happening, 4 or 5 times a year now. And these guys, facing obviously Jet Setters are a good team, but, they're not always, they're facing, Lawler and Rosser and some other random teams. It's not going to be a lot of prestige with these titles in this reign.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get to it when we talk about, because there was a strong, title match. I guess that's next. Maybe that's a good segue. We do have a question here, though.
Yeah, Fauci says, what's it going to take for World Class Wrecking Crew to get an invite to World Tag League? Also, do you think those dudes could fit in with the War Dogs?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know those dudes like that. So also, do they need more people?
I don't think so. And as far as the World Tag League invite, again, that's kind of the same thing with Tom Lawler. I don't know. There's some reason why those guys have not been brought over yet. I don't know what it is. Maybe we could ask around, but clearly there's something why guys like Lawler and West Coast Wrecking Crew and some of these other strong acts are not being brought over to Japan.
We should just DM Royce Isaacs and ask him. I'm sure he'd tell us. We never interacted with the man, but I just have the feeling he's the kind of dude that'd be all right, so this is what the fuck it is.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah.
So then following that, we had the strong openweight title match, 30-minute Iron Man match. We had the Stone Pitbull Tomohiro Ishii defeating War Ready Gabe Kidd in 34 minutes and 5 seconds to become the new strong openweight champion. And Josh, I don't care what the cage match scores say. This match was awesome. This match was incredible. This is a match of the year contender. This is a strong style fight of the year contender. I don't know what's to watch a different match. People who rated on cage match, well, this match was incredible.
Yeah, it's always a different experience watching something live than it is watching it on the screen, but not that different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like some of the reactions that I'm seeing to this match are kind of bewildering, because in my mind, unless the reaction is, wow, that was fucking awesome and one of the best New Japan matches of the year, I don't understand what what people are talking about. I feel like I'm a pretty harsh critic of professional wrestling, and I'm not as apt to just jump up for joy for something if I didn't genuinely think it was really incredible. And I've been to, I would say saying my fair share of wrestling would be an understatement. Like, we collectively have been to, I don't know, I've lost count.
Right. I mean, we've been to everything from your local indie to your, WrestleManias, your takeovers, your, everything in between. Like, we've kind of seen the gamut of shows live.
Yeah, and when I say that this is one of the best matches that I remember ever seeing live, it really is. Part of it too, and this always goes a really long way for me, is like, and we'll talk about some other matches where this wasn't the case, when the crowd is reacting at such a fantastic level, that always plays a big role. Now, that is one thing I did hear, was that the audience perhaps wasn't mic'd as well. The audio maybe wasn't as good as it possibly could have been, but it is a little hard for me to kind of buy that. I do feel like I want to go back and rewatch this, see what came across through the pay-per-view screen, because the crowd was just up for like most of the match and kind of never really came down. Like, they just kept going up, 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 so much so that it was hard for Zack Sabre Jr. and like David Finlay to like follow this shit.
Yeah.
They kind of killed the territory for these guys. But I thought the match, the only thing that I really didn't necessarily, and I could maybe be a little critical of it, I didn't like some of the antics from Gabe during the match. I understand some of it's like his character work, but to me it was like a little over the top repetitive. It's like, all right, cool, you do a funny taunt, but it's like he kept going and going and going, and like I'm like, all right, you're doing a little too much of this. But the actual action, the violence, and the biggest critique I've heard from people is like, it's just guys hitting each other. But I'm like, but they're really fucking hitting each other.
Yeah, those chops were sounding off. There's also a long chop exchange between both men, and yeah, both men's chests becoming red, and yeah, that was intense, and also a lot of big forearm exchange strikes. But yeah, they were hitting each other pretty hard, especially with those chops.
And I get it, we always want something new, we want something fresh, and people have different tastes. But I kind of feel like that this is more an indictment on how fans, perhaps especially in the States, feel about Gabe Kidd than it is an actual honest critique of the match itself, because the action was really fantastic. The violence was super high level. The work, the crowd work, everything was like really magnificent, and they built it in such a great way. They went super deep. There was a point like early on in the match where we're like, they're going to keep this pace like for the whole match. And don't get me wrong, they're good workers. They found ways to slow it down when needed, but they never let it lull to a point where it felt boring. And then we got like super deep, like I don't even know how long, like 24 minutes into the match.
Yeah.
And then the first fall happened.
Yeah, it was around like the 22-minute mark. Gabe hits a powerbomb to get the first fall on Ishii. So the champion kind of being in the lead, and then he's, taunting, say he's going to run the clock out and kind of, keep away from Ishii. And so then, yeah, it was up on Ishii to try and get that pinfall to catch up, and then came down to the about 28-minute mark, where Ishii got a submission fall over Gabe Kidd with an armbar, which was kind of cool. It's rare. You don't really see Ishii like tapping people out, but he kept working that armbar. He turned it into a triangle choke with those big elbows to the head, and then turning it back to an armbar, getting the submission win.
I thought it was funny though, because like if you are, it worked in the context of pro wrestling, but if you like know anything about like jiu-jitsu or submission wrestling, I'm like, you can't do a triangle choke. His legs are too small. Like, and then later on, like he does the second arm bar, but he's like doing it backwards. Like it's the wrong way, but like it doesn't matter at that point. Like the drama is so high and like everything and really fantastic. And then, yeah, he caught things up with Gabe. Prior to that, there had been some incredible like strike exchanges. And we keep mentioning that, but there's a part where Gabe finally like was coming up on Ishii and sort of subduing Ishii and really taunting him and starting to batter him. And he challenged Ishii to like come at him, and he like gives him a chop, and Ishii hawks up like in the corner, like he's about to power up and shit. And he hits him with one more chop, and he just crumbles. I remember like I freaked out. Samsa was with his wife like a couple seats over from us, and like he popped for that shit real big. And then Ishii still was able to like come back and triumph. I was like rolling, laughing so hard. I missed what even had happened between him hulking up, getting crumbled, falling to the mat like a sack of bricks. And then the next thing I know, I look up and he's on the offense again. I'm like, how did this happen? But the last iteration of the match, like you mentioned, is like Ishii chasing, and Gabe kind of playing keep away, but also battering him and trying to run out the clock. And eventually they did end up running out the clock.
Well, yeah, Gabe rolls out with 10 seconds left. He's like, you know what? Yeah, I'm out of here. Like, I can't get counted out in 10 seconds. It's a draw. It's going to be a draw. I'm going to retain on a draw.
And here's the thing. I didn't know that there was a sudden death clause in the match, but I was listening to another podcast this week where they were like, retroactively listening to it. And they mentioned that they had announced that if they went to the time limit, that there'd be a sudden death. So that kind of spoiled it a little bit for me, because like the people in the audience were like chanting for sudden death for so long. It seemed like we had organically, not that this was always planned, but it felt like an organic moment where the crowd, was able to quote unquote like sway management. But come to find out, this was always in the clause. So like, why the fuck was Gabe Kidd as a character? If he already knew there was a sudden death, why is he, if this was pre-announced, and apparently it was, because I heard it on a show where they'd already discussed it, why was he like teasing that he was going to walk off knowing full well, just it'd be like in a football college game where it's like, oh, we're not going to go to sudden death. It's like, the game's tied. We're just going to call it a draw. Like,
yeah, we're going back to the bus. Sorry. But yeah, so the ref, goes to the announcer, and they have, after big sudden death chance, they announce that, the ref's continuing the match, sudden death, until, then they get in there and go for about 5 more minutes, and they're doing all the big moves and kicking out, like, Gabe Kidd's dropping Ishii with the pile driver, and he kicks out. Then Gabe gets hit with a pile driver from Ishii, and he pops up, and they're just going back and forth, hitting these big bombs, and then finally Ishii hits the brain buster and gets the big win. Crowd is going nuts. Also, U.S. crowd loves Ishii and hates Gabe. So yeah, the crowd was, I think a lot of people expected Gabe to retain. So they were super happy when Ishii pulled out the brain buster and was able to beat Gabe Kidd here.
Yeah, it was really cool. We were in New Orleans in 2018?
Yeah.
When he was able to beat Zack Sabre Jr. for the Rev Pro title WrestleMania weekend. That was a pretty cool moment to be there live for that. That was a really fantastic match, and to kind of be there live again for another big title win, the first one in over 3 years for Ishii. That was pretty awesome. At the same time, there are those people that are critical of this move, because you got Gabe Kidd, who is hot at the current time, and you just took his singles title off of him, and it feels like he's come up short a lot throughout the year in big, meaningful singles matches. At the same time, a lot of like New Japan fans sort of know that like that sort of title could potentially be an albatross and a stumbling block preventing him from being able to advance within the company. And, you know, if I'm putting on my WeWork stiff hat, there's probably a narrative of failure leading to something, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm not going to look deep enough into it myself personally right now, but, you know, it's just one of those things. Like it's always a catch-22 in wrestling where it's like you want to book big stars against one another, but when you can't always be in a situation where everybody always needs to win. Like someone's got to do a job. That's why being the booker is not a fun job. Everyone's always trying to protect their spot. And in New Japan, guys are mostly pretty compliant and pretty will play ball and very giving to one another. So I thought that Gabe was very, very giving to Ishii in this particular situation. And hopefully he's able to kind of fail forward and move into a more prominent role without having to worry about the booking of the strong belt.
Yeah, and that plays into a question that we got from Rambones. He said, do we think that Gabe Kidd is about to pull a Panda in New Japan failing upward maneuver after shedding the strong openweight belt? What's next for him? And yeah, I think this is definitely going to be a scenario, like you mentioned, Josh, of him failing up. And yeah, I do think the strong title has kind of held him back. And also he had that excellent, you know, match of the year with Kenny Omega at the beginning of the year. And then you follow that with the Tsuji match. And yeah, he's been really kind of hitting his stride. The Japanese crowd really loves him, and he's, you know, been one of the top stars in the promotion. But he's had that strong belt, and you know, I was thinking, you know, he would get a strong New Japan Cup run or something, you know, big would come out of that. But yeah, I do think, you know, with that Ishii match being announced for several months now, I think having a strong belt, having that whole program kind of held him back from things in Japan. Now that they don't really have to worry about that, I do think that we could potentially see some big things coming for him in Japan.
And yeah, Rambone sent to live chat, deep G1 run for Gabe. Possibly. I'm at the point where I don't, you know, I've been kind of echoing this on the show for a little while now. I didn't think that title really did hold him back personally, because I don't feel like the strong titles get represented very well in domestic Japan anyways. I mean, how often was he even wearing that belt out to the ring? I feel like it wasn't.
He always had it with him.
Okay, but I feel like he never had it on. Doesn't matter if that's not true. To me, it felt like he never brought that belt out. But I feel like those titles are sort of like, you know how in CMLL they have like the Tijuana office and the other office, and they got those other belts that are never represented on TV. They just like kind of don't count until they actually count. That's sort of like what the strong belts are like. They're not real unless you're in America, so they don't really matter that much. I felt like he could have Rambone says very Trumpian post-truth take. Yeah, I sort of think that like we're past the point where those titles actually have any real significance, value, or meaning. So it's like, you know, what would it have mattered if he had won another belt? It didn't stop, you know, fucking, what's his name? It didn't stop Eddie Kingston from becoming a Triple Crown champion. He held the ROH title. Like, why the fuck can't Gabe also hold a world title? Like, I don't get it. Yeah, it doesn't. And that's sort of the reason why I also sort of feel like putting the title on Ishii is cool and all, but it doesn't really matter because these belts don't matter, because the brand itself is sort of non-existent and sort of just holds this weird nebulous space that's pretty insignificant, except for the one time a year in Chicago that they needed to actually matter.
Yeah, but I do think Ishii's a great guy to hold it. Also, he's a guy beloved by the U.S. Fan base. He's a guy that's going to give you a great match night in and night out, and you can kind of put him on these strong cards and have a great undercard match with somebody. So I think that's the right move there. And yeah, I would love to see Gabe move up from here. And yeah, hopefully there is a strong G1 run for him this year. Like
you said earlier, you were talking about with Tom Lawler and how important that belt was when Tom held it, because the brand actually had value and an importance and a meaning in the midst of pandemic era New Japan. But once it moved to Fred Rosser, and this is no slight on Fred Rosser, but once the pandemic started to subside, we moved more to live touring, and the belt itself wasn't really the crown jewel of the Strong brand anyways. It kind of just became a secondary or third tier title, you know, within the company itself or within the brand. And even someone hot like Gabe, who is working his ass off, trying to have great matches and put in great performances and elevate the value of the belt, it doesn't, when the shows are spread out so far and they're insignificant to the actual ongoings of the regular company, and with everything else that's kind of gone on with Gabe in domestic Japan and the fact and his status as champion was really, what I guess I'm trying to say is like, even he can't get the belt over.
Yeah.
You know, if he can't get the belt over, the belt doesn't matter that much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, you know, kind of goes back to the whole thing we were talking about what's strong, kind of repeating that whole thing. But yeah, the brand doesn't really matter. If you are a US like New Japan fan, like you're probably not really locked into quote unquote strong, because there is no really weekly strong to be locked into. Like you're going to see, you want to see the real champions. You want to see the IWGP titles. You want to see the Never titles. Like, who cares if the strong title is there?
Exactly. And, you know, ideally, would it be perfect to have that title be like the main, like, you know, when you go to see NXT, you want to see the NXT champion, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. In strong, it's like the fifth from the top. It's not a real title that matters.
Yeah.
You know, literally any other singles belt in the entirety of New Japan, except for the TV title, they're all going to, if any of those champions come to America, they all headline over the strong title. That includes the Never belt.
Yeah. Especially if it being on Takeshita right now.
Right.
Yeah, you could definitely, any of those singles titles would headline over the strong title. And yeah, it's really, that kind of really mid-card, opening card kind of act at this point.
I feel like the belt had a significance and an importance, kind of the same way KOPW did, kind of the same way like the U30 did. Like, these belts come along in New Japan's history and they have a function and an importance for a time period, but then they can kind of go away. I don't think the strong belt needs to exist anymore, personally. And I mean, maybe I'm pissing in Ishii's cornflakes, you know, because unfortunately he just won that belt. But, you know, it's sort of like when Tommy Dreamer won the hardcore title. It's time to merge that shit with the IC belt. Come on, let's do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for unifying the strong and Never title, just having like one super open weight title.
Yeah, I think having one open weight title would make a ton of sense.
Yeah, then you just make that person go back and forth between the US and Japan, and it's fun.
I think that would make a ton of sense. They should just do that, but they won't.
Yeah. So following that, we had a tag match with LIJ's Tetsuya Naito and Teton defeating El Phantasmo and Rocky Romero in 11 minutes and 4 seconds. And, you know, it all went wrong because they made Rocky an ELP team, obviously both being a part of Hantai. Now with Chaos kind of merging in with Hantai, and these two former enemies being forced to team here.
Yeah, I don't think that these guys have any business teaming up with one another. You know, they should be mortal enemies. Thankfully, there was friction the entirety of their tenure as a tag team together, and I don't see a long future for them to team up anytime in the near future. So that's very good. I thought that the standout guys, actually, I thought everybody here, I'm sorry, Trish. I thought everybody except for Tetsuya Naito stood out here. It's not hating if it's just true, but
sometimes the truth hurts.
But, you know, you did point out to me that Naito looks better running right now than Tanahashi does, and that's true. And he did hit somewhat cleanly a running Destino, so that's good. At the same time, I thought it was kind of a funny optic to see the dude that drew the house and headlined the fucking building the year before working with the T-shirt in an undercard tag team match that was kind of low stakes and of very, non-importance basically.
Yeah, I mean, this was would be kind of like your an opening, road to kind of tag team match, and
it's like a road to preview tag.
Yeah, and a preview for nothing, because I mean, this is Naito and Teton don't normally team, and there's really no story coming from this. Obviously, I think there was a post match Rocky and LP are arguing with each other, but.
Well, when I say road to preview, yeah, there's no preview, but it's this is the kind of match that would serve as a preview because there's not necessarily a strong, obvious pin eater. Although we all kind of know it's Rocky, it's also plausible that it could, I guess, also be, Teton. So it kind of depends. But yeah, I thought the match was fun. It was fine. It didn't knock me out or anything, but again, you had two matches back to back that had to sort of follow. I felt like the crowd was tired and pretty spent coming off of actually, no, I'm sorry. This was the first match following the strong title match. And so I thought it was a good way to kind of pump a little bit of energy into things. It didn't overstay its welcome, kind of kept it light, very fun, very exciting. But it was going to be hard for these four guys to win the crowd over following what they just followed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think the star power of Naito helped, and the LIJ fans being excited to see him. But yeah, besides that, there wasn't a whole ton of juice this match. Towards the end, Teton hits his El Immortal double stomp on Rocky to get the win for the team there, and then the funniest post match happened here, where, like I mentioned earlier, there was a gentleman dressed up as Jushin Thunder Liger in the front row, and Naito is taunting this guy, and Teton is messing around, pretending it's a real Liger. He grabbed a chair, acting like he's gonna hit him with a chair, and then they're taunting the Liger guy, and Naito's like, come on, jump the barricade. Come on. For 5 minutes, he's telling this Liger guy to jump the barricade.
He wouldn't do it. And then they left, and he I don't know, he kind of was pantomiming, talking to his friends oh, fuck, I should have done it. I missed my moment. And then he fucking jumps
Oh, man.
And then the people, the security and the young boys and everything, they come, and he's like, oh, okay. And he jumped back over, and I was like, let him go, man. I love one of my... Why are you laughing?
Because, bro, I'm just thinking about, you're probably going to tell the story that I think you're going to tell.
I'm not going to tell. I could tell that story, but it's not just one story. I've seen so many moments in my wrestling fandom live where people that didn't belong in the ring got in the fucking ring, and it usually ends very, very poorly for those people. And how funny would the optic? Other people are probably all night. People are shouting out "Oh, we got Liger here!" And I was like, "This would have been so fucking awesome if Liger got his ass beat, twisted into pretzel."
Yeah.
You fucking idiot! You jumped over the fucking barricade. What the hell are you thinking? I want to see those dudes just potato the shit out of his ass. Pull the mask off. Let's see what he looks like under there.
Yeah, and I just think of, when we're at NXT and that dude jumped the ring and Kyle O'Reilly just kicked the crap out of that dude.
He kicked him so fucking... I mean, I've said this on the show so many times, but he kicked him so fucking hard that his foot ricocheted off this drunk dude's head, and he accidentally kicked Jessica Carr in the face as well, because the trajectory, he hit him so hard that his foot flopped and hit her. And then... what was the big dude's name from what was the tag team? The men, not Men on a Mission, but oh my God. All right. So who's the big funny muscle dude?
Otis and Dojovic.
Yeah, what was Otis's tag? What was that? Tag
Tucker Knight. Otis and Tucker Knight.
Tucky, fuck all night, Tucker Knight.
Yeah.
Yes.
I forget their tag team name right now.
Men on a Mission.
No. It was something machines or something.
The Heavy Machinery?
Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
They both look like Owen Hart in his final, before the blue blazer. They both had the caution tape look. But anyways, Tucker Knight fucking pushes this dude into the ropes so hard. I thought his like pushed him down so that his body hit the bottom rope. And I thought his neck broke. Like literally his neck flopped on that bottom rope so hard. But this dude was so drunk. He had have you ever heard about like when they say statistically that a lot of drunk drivers like overwhelmingly survive the crashes that they caused when they shouldn't. And they think that it's because like when you're in a car crash, a lot of people, your natural reaction is like tense up. And that's usually a contributing factor to like the injuries. But if you're like relaxed and completely loose and if you're lucky, you have the right set of circumstances, you might survive it. But like, that's what happens with drunk people. It's like, they don't have the motor function to respond and react to what the fuck's happening to them. And this dude's in the ring and he gets his bell rung and it hasn't even registered. He's just still flopping. Tucker Knight pushes his ass into the fucking rope so hard that I thought this dude's neck broke, and he's fine. Then the cops come and they twisted his arms and like were punching him. And he seemed totally cool. Like, I'm sure the next day he wasn't, but he was fine, dude.
Yeah, man.
It's amazing.
Crazy.
Did you ever see The Simpsons when Homer was a boxer?
Nah.
Okay, so these are Dan Coffin's gonna fucking love this, but there's an old episode of The Simpsons where Homer's head had like a head like one of the Tongans, where it was so thick that he couldn't feel pain, like the Samoans. Mm-hmm. And so he'd go into and he had no actual ability to box, but he could absorb an unlimited amount of punches. So he'd get in the ring with these bums, like literal bums, and they would like be punching and he'd just eat them all up. And then they'd get so tired and he'd be in no pain. And then he would just push him over. And that's like, eventually he had to fight the I forget the character's name, but he's basically like Mike Tyson, and the Mike Tyson character is going to kill him. But that's what this dude was like, this dude was like Homer, just eating that shit up. It didn't matter.
Get destroyed and didn't no selling.
But that's not how it was going to end up for Fat. And let's be clear, Fat Liger is his name. Yeah. All right. That's what it would have looked like if I put on the Liger suit. You know what I mean? Like, everyone loves this dude. Ha ha ha. Bro, I don't fucking like the fans to try to get themselves over. Fuck that dude. You're a disgrace. You don't belong in the red and the white. You hopped over the fence. They should have locked you up. I want to see Naito beat his ass. That's what I want to see. That's a fight where I would have been on Naito's side. Been like, hell yeah, Naito, let's do this. Get him. I love to watch wrestlers beat up the marks, bro. It's one of my favorite. There's so many incidences. Like, I've seen Kevin Nash beat people up, Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Bret Hart, Stone Cold, like Eddie Guerrero. I love when they fuck those dudes up. It's fantastic.
We had a question from Jeff Frankel 720. Says, what do you think is next for Naito? Watching a strong show made me realize he has nothing to do now that he and Hiromu aren't tag champs.
I don't know. They'll find something.
Yeah, I mean, he does have a tag match with Hiromu on this upcoming tour. I think he's going to be the Dominion challenger for Goto. I feel like that's a pretty big main event. And, Goto's kind of been on a tour of beating people he's had a hard time beating in the past. So I kind of feel like that kind of fits that kind of trend, and it would be a good drawing main event.
I can't say I'm like invested in the path that Naito has currently going, because there's just nothing of substance. I felt like the match with Hiromu was built so well and fell so flat for me. And the follow-up since then has been lackluster. So I don't know where you get this guy back on track to where he becomes a compelling character for me as someone that I would basically call a non-Naito fan, but a fan of the company. There's definitely been a lot of stories that he's been involved in where I've been invested and thought they were very good. Maybe putting him in there with Goto, even though I can't say I love the idea of that match, I see the marketability, and I think that it might be compelling from a narrative standpoint, especially if, this man eats another loss in a big high stakes main event against my dog Goto. But I don't know. I don't know where you go from there. And, he probably needs to beat Callum Newman, get that win back. Fuck it, Newman.
Well, we'll talk about Newman some more here in a second. Let's see. Ramo says, I don't think it's going to happen until Naito does his Tanahashi style goodbye tour.
What's not going to happen? What did I say? I blink out on this show, bro. I start sentences and I don't know where the fuck they're going. And then I just stop them and I let you say shit. People DM me after the shows sometimes and they're like, bro, you said blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what did I say? It's no joke. I don't know what the fuck I said.
He said a deep story of important stakes.
Oh, I don't know if we're getting that send off for him. Maybe we will. Feels like he's gonna have to stay in the game a lot longer than he needs to get to that place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They should just make the announcement tomorrow. We're doing the Tanahashi Naito final bye-bye tour. Double bang for your buck. Get them both out of here. Double retirement show. Oh, they should do night 1, night 2 like they did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, one night is the Tanahashi show, and the next Naito show.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Get them both out of here. Someone in our Discord put up a poster from the upcoming Red Zone show. Get in the zone. Red Zone. But they're like, it's the big 6. And like 2 of those dudes was Naito and Tanahashi. I was like, that's not the big 6 for very long, bro. There's a lot of olds on top on that page.
Yeah. Well, move on to the next match. We had Zack Sabre Jr. defeating David Finlay in 15 minutes and 20 seconds. Thought this was a very good match, but like you mentioned, these guys still had the tough task of, just being a second match after the Iron Man match, and I feel like the crowd got so emotionally invested into the Iron Man match, it kind of took them a while to get into this. And I feel like Zack Sabre was super over with this, over enough for this U.S. fan base, where Finlay wasn't quite as over as you maybe think he would be, and the crowd just had a really hard time getting into this.
Yeah, and I don't think it helps that Finlay just came off of a major loss, For as good of a showing as he had in the New Japan Cup, it's one of those things where it's like, if you're already a big star and you win one of those tournaments, that might be enough, Mm-hmm. But if you're someone who is on an upward trajectory and then you win one of those tournaments, but you fail in the tournament or in the title challenge afterwards, there's definitely a dampening of the accomplishment of winning the tournament, right? And we've seen this in the past, like Tsuji, for instance. Tsuji won that tournament. It was a really awesome tournament, really great story for him. But after he lost to Naito, not to say that the company didn't still have him in the mix, not to say that the company didn't have plans for him. Like it was definitely an elevation from a kayfabe standpoint, but in the minds of the audience, the reactions, the attention and everything, it seemed to be lessened by having not beat Naito. Same thing happened years ago with like, say, Kota Ibushi. Remember, he won one of these and it was a really big deal. And then he fought AJ Styles and he lost. And it took a long time for us to get back to the point to where he was a real significant player. He had to go the secondary title route and everything. Same Tsuji did too. Like Finlay's already been down the secondary title route for a while now. Like, so he was kind of ready for the elevation. Mm-hmm. And I think eating that loss and in the States already sort of having a precarious relationship with the audience here as it stands to begin with wasn't a great recipe. I honestly think, and I mean this wholeheartedly, had he won that title and come into Chicago with the belt and the match being on top and the idea being that Zach has an opportunity to potentially win that belt in Chicago, the energy, the reactions, the reception would have been entirely different. It would have been a whole different story. But because it wasn't that, it was Zach, who just lost the title recently and who just got beat in the New Japan Cup, versus Finlay, who did win the cup, but also has this kind of precarious relationship with the audience here, and then also lost to Goto, both of them kind of coming off losses. It's kind of a crossroads match. The energy just wasn't there from the fans. They weren't invested. The match itself was pretty good. Not nearly. I saw some like apologists out there trying to proclaim like, oh, the Western fans just don't get it. They've lost the plot because this match was so good and they weren't reacting. And I'm like, that's always the job of the performers to get the people invested. And I don't think they did a good enough job winning the audience over. But it clearly was not, at least in my estimation, it was clearly not nearly the level of work and intensity that their New Japan Cup match was. Like, that felt very special. This felt like a very good house show style match. It didn't feel like something that really mattered to either of them the way the other one had.
Yeah, I feel like the closing stretch was like the closing stretch of a great main event. But in the beginning parts of the match, where, like you mentioned, it's a very good house show style, and you got to get towards the finish here, and there was a great counter where Finlay's been doing this gator roll into the overkill for his finish. So he does that. He hits the gator roll. He pops Sabre up for the overkill, but then Sabre blocks it and immediately used it to grab that knee and pulled him up into that Yuban Tangoed version of the Zack driver and got the pinfall win over Dave Finlay. So,
and I think that was also a play off the finish of the first match they had in the cup altogether. I feel like it was almost the same sequence.
Yeah, because Finlay, he's that same finish to beat Zach. And so Zach had it scouted, hit the Yuban Tangoed, pins Finlay. So yeah, a really good match. But yeah, did not live up to their New Japan Cup match. And I'm sure like you mentioned, had this been a title match or maybe a different spot on the card or higher stakes, there probably would have been some more crowd investment into this match. We have a question from Barry Walsh, who says, do you think the global market issues affecting the yen could prevent Zach from getting another title run soon, as his attendance figures were not as strong as Goto's have been?
There could certainly be something to that. But I don't know if that's necessarily having any to do with, what's going on with the economics of Japan in general. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because business is business, whether the yen is strong or whether it's weak. Zach didn't draw on the same level as other recent champions. And so even if things turn around for Japan or drop, I don't know if that necessarily reflects on Zach in any way. All you can really judge Zach off of is, in a vacuum, how did he do in his particular time frame where he held that title?
Right. Yeah. So like I said, I think there's a lot of just domestic business stuff that would prevent him, not necessarily the global market.
In fact, I think that some of what's going on in the global market might be good for the yen. I don't trade currencies and I don't follow other countries' markets, but my understanding is to some degree the yen has actually strengthened with some of the stuff that's ongoing. So who knows?
Yeah. So following that, we did get a promo video from the Young Bucks. So they said that they're challenging the War Dogs, saying, there's a lot of you, only two of us. So we're going to, call up some OG brothers to come team with us. That'll be too sweet. So sounds like it's going to be.
Is that what they said?
Yes.
Bro, I swear to God, I don't even know. How do you know that that's what they said?
Because I went back and I watched the promo video on Twitter because we couldn't really hear it in the building.
Why couldn't we hear it in the building?
because the audio was not good.
No, that's not why. It's not because the audio wasn't good. We couldn't hear it because the boos were so fucking loud and deafening that it was impossible to hear what those guys were saying. Now,
But it also wasn't, the audio wasn't like turned up that loud though. It was kind of low, but and that's why it was kind of getting drowned out by the boos.
Bro, those boos, that was one of the loudest reactions of the whole entire fucking night was the boos, and it was prolonged and persistent. Now, I don't know if that's just I don't know if it's like a thing where it's like just the New Japan audience, you know, like the Smark crowd not liking the Bucks, or if it's just the Chicago audience and this is fallout from the brawl out shit with Punk and everything, or a combination of the two. But they were fucking pissed to see them on that screen. And I was like, I got pissed, not because I love the Bucks, but I got pissed because I want to hear what they're fucking saying. And everyone's booing so loud. I was like, shut the fuck up. Like, I can't hear what they are saying.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know until this moment that's, and now you're telling me that they're probably bringing in Guns and Gallows. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's going to be an 8-man tag, the Bucks and the Good Brothers against 4 of the War Dogs.
That sucks. Why the fuck would I want to see more Bullet Club lore shenanigans bullshit? I'm already basically done at this point with War Dogs and House of Torture. Rambone says the Bucks are working heel and they also prolong the terrible John Moxley title reign. That's worth a boo. I don't know what that means, but yeah. What does that mean?
He's talking about the Bucks, you know, screwing out Swerve at Dynasty.
I don't know about that. All I know is they're coming to Shinnegan and they're bringing in Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows, and that sucks.
Yeah, not going to be great. So.
Is there? I don't even know, honestly, and I'm just being fully transparent here. I don't know if there's really even a version of Bullet Club versus Bullet Club that if it could have ever been carried out that I would have even liked it in the first place.
Yeah, because I mean, also the original kind of Civil War, you had the Elite versus like the Tongans essentially.
They teased it many times though, and they didn't always carry it out. But like they for a lot of different reasons, were always planting the seeds for different Civil Wars. And I'm like, none of these would have been good. And then this one that could have been good is not good, even though we're getting the dog pound steel cage. And I guess we'll talk about that. I'm not overly enthused right now. So why do I have to dredge up bringing back, you know, these dudes? You know, I don't want to see the Bucks work with Guns and Gallows to work the War Dogs. That fucking sucks.
Well, yeah, that's what's on deck here. And we have a question from Templar235. How y'all feel about the Good Brothers being brought back? It pays to be bros with Rocky Romero. And yeah, we did think this would be a possibility with their relationship with Rocky. And it sounds like, you know, the Talking Shop podcast is going to be restarting, I think, this week. And yeah, I think definitely, you know, New Japan / AEW would be a landing spot for them. And so we'll see if they come back to Japan. But yeah, it does seem like they'll be used on these New Japan US shows.
Yeah. And who knows what that means? Like, we've seen plenty of people come in for New Japan strong shots and it didn't really mean much, you know?
Yeah. And who knows, like, you know, maybe they are signing for AEW and this is kind of a one-off thing to maybe kickstart that AEW storyline. And maybe we don't see them ever again, or maybe it's the start of seeing them every US show and the start of seeing them back in Japan. So
I hope not.
Yeah, not really looking forward to seeing either of those, especially their last run. And we were talking about it at the meetup, the rooftop bar. Like, this man Carl Anderson has been like riding the wave of that one great G1 match for like 10 plus years now.
Yeah, but I had to correct you guys because that was something that Chris said. He said he's had one great match, and I said 2. You know, the Tanahashi match is also very good. And he's like, you're right. And he's like, so basically 2 great matches in his entire career. One with Tanahashi, one with Okada, 2 of the best to ever fucking do it.
And he rode that way for, 10, 13 years now. It's crazy.
Yeah, and he's trying to get into the fucking G1, and he might do it.
Yeah, some spots are opening up. Cobb out. There could be a spot for him.
There very well could be.
Well, let's go to the semi-main event here. We had the IWGP World Heavyweight title on the line. Hirooki Goto defeats the Roughneck Shota Umino in 20 minutes. And man, this guy, Shota Umino, he is a geek. This guy came out here to apathy. And just, a year ago, he was getting good reactions in this city.
I don't know, man. I don't know what to say about Shota Umino at this point, because we've already cooked this dude this year.
Yeah.
We cooked him before the Dome for not deserving to be booked in the Dome and the poor build. We cooked him when he fucking fumbled the bag in the Dome. We cooked him when he had the poor outing with Great O'Khan and shaved his head and nobody reacted or cared and he got booed. And then we cooked him for having a super, super duper subpar New Japan Cup with one great match in the finals. And it kind of seemed like maybe there was a shining light and they're starting to turn things around. And then suddenly here we are again. He got another title shot. And for all the times that we praise New Japan's booking and talk about the long-term plans and the long-term storytelling and everything, we are clearly right now in the midst of it. We've been saying this for a few years now. So maybe, I don't know, maybe we're not in it, but what I'm saying is it's felt like we've been in a transitionary period, right? With all these young guys and the turnover in talent and the sort of adjustment of the styles and almost kind of the ethos of the company. But now we're a couple of years in and it's starting to feel like there's definitely growing pains to be had in the midst of a period like that. And maybe they haven't fully fleshed out and figured out what it is they want to do and who they want to do it with. We've talked in the past about them kicking the tires with certain guys, but with Shota Umino, this was his second big title shot this year, and we're only in early April.
Yeah.
And he didn't really do much to kind of earn the spot or really improve or fix the issues that were already prominent in November of last year. And here we are. I was very kind of goading and sort of boastful in kind of making fun of Chris Samsa on this show, because when he was on, and I mentioned this to him in Chicago, when we were on this show, he was very much when we did the preview for the New Japan Cup and we talked about the potential, what is it that they're doing with Umino and everything. We talked about the fact that we thought he was going to go deep and sort of redeem him. And Samson was like, that's terrible. And we were like, well, they kind of need to put a new coat of paint on him. They're going to do something fresh and new and exciting, kind of rebuild him, repackage him. And I felt justified when he was going deep in the tournament and they were doing the character changes. And even though I wasn't loving the matches, I was like, there's clearly something here. They're brewing something. It's a new faction. It's a heel turn. It's a face turn. There's something interesting. And we had all these little breadcrumbs. We had the interaction with Finlay, the interaction with Tanahashi, the whole thing where he wasn't present in the ring when Goto got handed the reins, and backstage comments. And it's all building. And we're like, what the fuck is this building to? And then they announced this match. And you and I, we ran out of time last week. We didn't really do a proper preview for this show. We probably should have spent a little time talking about the weird fucking build for this match, because it just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And they put themselves in a no-win kind of situation where it's this guy's not ready for the spot. It's not earned in storyline perspective, but if he loses, he's just cooked. So then the predominant thinking was like, well, they're going to do some sort of, they're going to do a heel turn. They're going to do a character change. They're going to bring in a heavy. They're going to bring in a faction. They're going to do something like, and then that's a catch-22 because like you're going to do one of those major angles in America without, the audience that is actually invested in this, like domestically, that's kind of slapping their face sort of thing.
Yeah.
So there's just so many like prevailing and different viewpoints and feelings about all this. And then you've got like us sitting over here that's just like, please don't fucking put the title on this dude. Like whatever you do, just don't. So the entire time we're watching the match, it's like sitting on pins and needles and with bated breath to be like, they better not fucking go with Umino. And like, I know that they've booked themselves into a corner to where it's like they kind of need to go with Umino, because if they don't go with Umino and if they don't do something fresh and exciting here, and if the match isn't great, guy's very much cooked. And guess what happens? He goes out there and he laid a fucking stinker.
Yeah, bro, this match sucked. And there's a lot of Umino apologists online. They're like, oh, yeah, these American fans, they don't understand. If this match was in Japan, it would have been great. It would have gotten a great reaction. I'm like, no. Like, I watch them. I watch New Japan in Japan. I'm a U.S. fan, and I watch the match. I see the mechanics. Like, that was not a great match. This guy, Umino, no reaction. Like, not even really getting booed. Like, there was, like, silence. And this was literally a year from when he faced Jack Perry and was getting cheered to defeat the evil Jack Perry.
That match wasn't that much about him, though.
It wasn't, but he got reactions. Like, people cared about him. This year, the crowd did not care about him. They did not really care about this match. They were not into him, potentially winning the title. It seems like, the Moxley luster's kind of rubbed off, because that was the one thing that kind of carried him with U.S. fans. U.S. fans love, Shooter and him being John Moxley's son. Well, maybe the stuff that Moxley's doing is causing bad faith, because they did not care for him, being involved with him. They didn't.
I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think it's the fact that they're both happening at the same time. Like, and I think that's kind of funny, actually.
Yeah. And there was just, this match was just not great. I was literally just waiting for it to end. We were sitting there with Samsa, JJ Williams from F4W, Lyric, and all of us were just like, this needs to wrap up. This is not great. What are they doing here? And it's a stinker. They
did a lot of old 1980s level like leg work where people were laying on the mat. So it's like, I don't even know if it was all entirely just, because of the characters. I felt like the layout of the match wasn't conducive to being a great match to begin with either. But I've seen at this point a few, not a lot, but a few IWGP title matches live. You have too. And this was by far the worst one that I've ever seen live. And I've never seen a major New Japan match like this where the crowd was just so quiet. And you would think we were like in one of those mythical, respectful Japanese audience. You hear about,
they're so quiet. They just sit there. They don't make any noise.
They don't make it because they're educated, because they're invested, because they're being respectful to the action that's in front of them. I feel like if I was a Shota Umino truther, that's the tact I would go. I'd be like, yeah, the Chicago crowd is one of the smartest audiences that are out there, and they respect what they're seeing. This was a quasi-Japanese respectful audience. They were captivated by what they were seeing. But I got to tell you, like, there were so many times where I was just shocked at the level of don't give a fuckism that was going on in that building, where the people, it wasn't booze. It wasn't even hate. It was fuck. I don't fucking care about this guy. I don't care about this at all. I know that there are some of you that are listening that do, and you think we're wrong, but like, I don't know. I could tell you that there was at least If there was 4,700 people in that building, there was 46,050 of them that did not give a fuck about what was happening in that match,
including us.
and it wasn't Goto's fault. Goto's doing numbers. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
you know, people wanted to try and scapegoat Zach, who was Wrestler of the Year last year in Japan. You know, the Japanese MVP, only the second domestic guy to do it, dude. You know, foreigner that wins the G1, holds the title for a prolonged period, headlines the Dome, wins in the Dome back to back. And he's the guy that we're going to try and scapegoat because he didn't get Zach over. Or he didn't get Umino over in the Dome. Well, how about it now? We went to Chicago, one of the most lively, invested, hardcore wrestling audiences in the entire country, and put the darling of the world, who, like, right now, Goto is easily, and this is not hyperbole, and this isn't bias, it's just true. He's the Wrestler of the Year right now in April. And I'm not talking about for Japan, I'm talking about for the world. Right now, in the world of professional wrestling, the Flair Thez MVP award winner, the guy that's leading the charge for that, is Goto. That will probably change. I don't project him to be the guy for the whole year that wins that. But as of right now, he's the darling. He's what's hot right now, and he's like beloved. And he couldn't get anything out of Shota. Are we? I think that we are at a point where if he's your special little guy, then that's just what it is. You have to have a come to Jesus moment with yourself and be like, I love this dude, and no one else does, and that's okay. And then just make that be the case instead of like trying to trick everybody else who's seeing and hearing that this dude just does not have the fucking juice.
Yeah. And I think you have to look at two things. Like, that there is a booking. Like, he's not being booked well. Like, this was a poor decision to put him in a title match so soon in Chicago against Goto. Like, there was just so many calls from the office that were bad. But okay, you know what? Sometimes as a wrestler, you can't control the booking. You have to do what's kind of given to you. But then it goes on him. Like, he went out there and had this match, and like, there was no juice, no energy, no oomph. Like, he just kind of went out there and was kind of just in the motion. Like, there was no intensity, no aggression. Like, people weren't really biting on near falls. Like, he went out there and crapped the bed again. So it's like bad booking on top of bad performances, and it's just continuing to lower this guy's stock.
There was a moment where he, wasn't having success in the match from a kayfabe standpoint, and he rushes over and he goes, and he like screams, and the crowd just does not react, and it's totally silent. And I had stepped away from you guys. I was watching the match, but I stepped away because I had to stretch my legs. And I think I was like a seat or two behind like Phil Lindsay. And I just was like dumbfounded at the lack of response. And I remember like saying to myself, but like kind of out loud, where I was like, that's not a fighting spirit yell. That's a frustration yell. That's a dude who's just like, fuck, nothing I'm doing is getting anything. And
yes, that's a pay attention to me, yo.
Yeah, it's just not working. So that is what it is. And I'm done with it. I have no use or tastes for Shota Umino as a top guy or a top draw or top star in this company moving forward. This would be like, I don't know if I actually can't think. And I know we talked extensively the other week. I pulled up Cage Match and I talked about all the major matches he's had, the ones that hit, the ones that didn't hit, and everything like that. But like, I just can't think of how many other people have ever been given this many opportunities and failed and continue to get those opportunities in this company. Like, it just doesn't happen. And that's why like those kind of, you hear about them. If you're listening, or if you're talking to the right people, like the rumors about, the nepotism and the frustration from other stars because of that.
Mm-hmm.
they start to ring louder and truer to me because I'm like, how many times can this guy possibly fucking fail and the company are just going to double down? But I will say this, and this is the important thing that we do have to remember. All the intrigue, all the conjecture, all of the interest about what not about the match itself, but about the booking surrounding the match. At the end of the day, Goto hits him with one fucking GTR.
Just one.
Super clean. Pins him 1, 2, 3. There's no run-ins. There's no post-match
No
controversy.
Angle,
No
snapping, no heel turn.
Guy just walks to the back with an ice pack over his head. They don't even, I don't know. I didn't see the live shot, but they didn't even do the Okada crying into his face while Goto leads him away. Like, they didn't do none of that. Like, they focused on Goto, who cut a promo and he got huge reactions. He got a way bigger reaction from his post-match promo than from anything that actually happened in the match.
Yeah, he was
like, "We love you, we love you."
He's like, I don't speak English, but thank you. And they're like, yeah. He's like, I love you guys. And so fun stuff there. But yeah, he got a good reaction to the post-match, but nothing in the match, and yeah, the match was just rough.
But that is a huge telling point if they've put this guy in these prominent positions this many times and then they decided to kind of job him out that way. What does that tell you? You know, are we supposed to believe that this is a continuation of the saga of him? Or I don't know. I'm somewhat inclined to believe, I don't think that they're going to put a full stop to him, but I'm kind of inclined to believe that based on the way he lost to Goto and based on the reactions and everything that's been happening leading up to it, that we might be just flat out pivoting away from Umino. And I think that there are some Shinigami freak purists that are not happy with that and they're not buying it or believing it. But I think that is what has happened. I think it might be done.
I mean, they should pivot. Again, like you mentioned earlier, the nepotism, I don't know if they're going to just kind of keep going because it feels very Roman Reigns 2016, 2017, where they're just going to keep pushing him. He's going to keep losing to Brock. He's going to keep getting booed. He's going to keep getting under, and nobody wants him, but they're going to keep doing it because he's the hand-chosen guy. And I don't think Umino is going to be able to turn things around the way Roman did.
Yeah, but you know why? Because he doesn't have the body of Roman. He doesn't have the hair of Roman. He doesn't have the veneers of Roman Reigns. He doesn't have the that was a really funny joke, but you didn't react to it. But he doesn't have the Hollywood good looks that a Roman Reigns does, like the marketability of that sort of dude who it's like, even if you fail with him for like a decade, you still kind of have to keep going to the well because you're like, I can't be the dude that fucked up Roman Reigns. Look at him. He's fucking money. Like, but with Umino, like, it's perfectly okay to have failed with Umino and not made money because it's just Shota Umino. That's why I'm like, I don't understand why people are so passionate about him. I get it. I've watched the dude since he was a young lion, like literally from his inception. And I understand we all thought he was going to be something, but it's okay when they don't work out. You know what I mean? Like, not
right.
All
like,
of these.
What makes him so different from all these other young lions that come back and we think they're going to be something and they're not?
Right. Other than the fact that he was co-signed by Mox, other than the fact that he had a nickname and, you know, he's got the Red Shoes connection and there's some, you know, there's some investment. I feel like there's a certain level of fan investment to this golden era where it's like, you know, Kenny's on top, Okada's on top, you know, Naito's a big fucking star. You know, we're having these incredible G1s. Things are going really, really well. Oh, and look at our little guy. We got Shota Umino, and he's going to be the next one. He's in line. He's going to continue this golden era and age. But he's clearly not, bro. Like, even if you like him, I get it. You like him, but he does not have the juice. Like, point blank, he doesn't got the juice. He's not the dude.
And the thing is, not everybody can be the dude. Like, we need mid-carders. You need guys that can do a job. You need guys that can work these multi-man tags.
You need someone to carry a pimp cane around and bring out a girl with a with a with a bunny mask on and bite people's thumbs when they put them in a headlock. And
you need somebody to put an iron claw on,
Exactly. You need them to be carried out on a chain and that sort of thing. They can't all be Naito. We need Llanos, Watch this dude pivot to comedy wrestling and he fucking tear it up. You know what I'm saying?
He should try it.
They might want to try that. It worked really well for Taguchi and Yano. I feel like there is a comedy wrestler waiting to break out of Shota Umino. I would love for that to be like the final resting point for like this dude. Maybe he's a Hanma underdog. Maybe that's where we need to get with him. But ace of the company, babyface.
He's done.
That's done.
Cooked. Finito. Finished.
It's done. And we'll talk about it. People want to complain about Callum Newman, but give me Callum Newman any fucking day of the week for 100 years than Shota Umino on his best day. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'll get to Newman. Couple questions here on this match. So Rambone says, I will happily hold another L as a resident Shota apologist, but I'm wondering about your thoughts on the logic of having him have another failed title challenge so soon after the disaster at the Tokyo Dome without going full bore on a heel turn or something dramatic character change. What is the logic in constantly beating Shota while he keeps being put in prominent spots and also has fairly slow-paced character progression? What do you think the intention actually is? What is the best case outcome they are hoping to achieve with this booking?
Yeah, I think it's super bizarre booking, and I think it's a mistake from a creative standpoint. And yeah, it does beg to question, what is the motivation behind this? I guess if you were inclined to think about, okay, this company is clearly not done with him, maybe they are trying to build this redemption arc storyline, whatever that may be, for a metamorphosis for him and his character. And sure, that's probably where they're going, but it doesn't seem to serve their best interests as a company to take a guy that so many people did think was going to be a big star and continually expose him before he's ready, and then also book him into oblivion to where he's constantly losing for the entirety of his. Bro, he's never won a title.
Yeah, and it's been a couple of years now.
Like, correct me if I'm wrong, what singles title did he ever win? Any of them?
No, he's never. He's been global, US.
But he challenged for like almost all of them.
Yeah. He challenged Ospreay a couple times for the US. A couple world title challenges now. He's never had a tag titles. He's
more than a couple. He's had 3 or 4.
Yeah. So
was the Mox one the first one?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, that was a title match. Yeah, he challenged Mox.
So it's 3.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I heard an analogy on a Super J-Cast, and I don't know if they were the first ones that said this, or I also saw it in our Discord, but people talked about them taking the cake out of the oven before it's done cooking and you ruin it. And that's like where he is. Like every time he's like kind of incubating and cooking, they're putting him in a promised spot that sort of exposes him and hurts him. So it's very perplexing, but I won't say the ins and outs. I've learned that there are certain things I shouldn't say on the air, but you do have to wonder if there are reasons that they're doing that we're not privy to or aware of.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that they run the risk of getting to a spot. We talk about guys like Dave Finlay, where like they were a mid-card, they were seen as kind of this mid-card guy for so long, and how hard he had to work to finally be perceived as a main event guy. And I feel like that's what they're doing with Umino. Like, he's getting seen as this failure, and he's going to be labeled as a failure, and the fan perception, I think, is going to be so hard to change that narrative as a top guy with how many times he's already failed. And they keep going this route. That's how he's going to be labeled. And if he ever does turn it around, like, he's going to have to fight that perception so hard of being this failing geek. and losing in all these big moments. And it's been a while now. He should be winning some big matches now.
Goto was able to do it, but he had to be fucking great for 20 years.
Right, and that's the difference. Like, I get, like we said, the booking is one thing. If they were booking him to lose, we can go in a little bit harder on the booking. But he's also not having the great performances. Like, Goto's having had the great performances. All those New Japan Cup finals, several never title matches, big title matches. Like, Goto was great and had the matches. Umino is not having those performances.
Yeah, let me let me simplify what you just said. It'd be one thing if he had bad booking and was great, but he's having bad booking and he's also not good. You fucking suck, dude. if he just was good, if he was good, we would be rallying so hard against this bad creative and the bad direction.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to care about the bad direction and the bad booking because it feels like a gift from somebody. It feels like somewhere cosmically behind the scenes, someone is fighting against that. There is a force. Someone back there is propelling this dude forward. And there's someone smarter in the room being like, okay. We'll let him go this far, but we're not going to go full Umino. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is someone protecting us, standing in the gap, holding their hands up. And have you ever seen like the gif where like the dude is holding like the wall and it's a giant wall and it's like he's the one thing holding like the inevitability of Umino falling on us. And there's some voice in the back holding that shit away from us. Thank you, Kikuch, because he's doing God's work back there, bro. And so it's hard for me to care that he's getting buried when I know that if he wins, I'm going to fucking hate the company. I'm going to hate watching his main events. I'm going to hate watching him as a star because he's not a fucking star.
Yeah. And how many top guys have we seen like out wrestle bad booking in their careers?
Bro, that would be a whole different conversation if he was just having bad booking and he was getting mistreated and we were like, fuck, you're fucking our dude.
Right.
There's people that want to have that conversation right now about Gabe Kidd and about Tsuji, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not quite there myself personally, but I feel like we're a couple losses away from potentially having that conversation for those guys.
Yeah.
But you want me to go hard for this? You want me to go hard for Shota Umino? Come on, get the fuck out of here, bro. Like, this dude's having fucking subpar matches. He fucking killed. When I found out he was going to be the dude that was challenging Goto for the title, I didn't even know if I wanted to keep going to this show in the first. I was like, that sucks. Like, what a terrible challenger. And then when I thought that he might be the guy that I'd have to be there live to watch him win the belt in the building, I was sick to my stomach. And then when he finally fucking lost, it was like a weight was lifted off my shoulder and I could finally breathe and enjoy the main event. So yeah, fuck him. I don't care.
Def Triangle 720 says, is Shota the most recent returning talent to just lose every single title opportunity he had?
No, like almost all of them.
Yeah, I mean, Oiwa's been losing a lot of title matches lately.
Yeah, like most of them do.
Yeah. He also says, do you think New Japan should have kept Shota in the mid-card at least until he shows growth in his character and style for mid-card title?
Yeah.
I think, we kind of joked about it, but I really do think he should have put the black trunks back. He should have gone back to square one and been like, I need to fight from the bottom. And he should have been a young lion. He should have been facing off against, Yasuda and Morishima and Daiki Nagai and facing those guys and working his way back up to the main card and earning that and clawing his way back up to get to that spot. Instead of just kind of being off for a month and then being gifted, a New Japan Cup final and then a world title match.
Yeah, someone needs to teach this guy how to politic because I feel like this shit would have never happened to a Chris Jericho.
Yeah. Doctors of Goto doing such good business. Do we need to dump the youth over experience of building the future narrative? If we use examples of George Foreman, Randy Couture, Muto as aging draws who did better business 10 years after their peak.
Not all of them. Some of them. I don't know that George Foreman, maybe you can make an argument for George Foreman, but not completely. But yeah. I think there's always a room for some of that, but I think that pro wrestling is the best when you are doing a mixture of all of those things simultaneously. I don't think it's best to just solely be focusing on the youth and pushing everything else to the wayside, or vice versa, only focusing on the old draws, WCW style. Like, it kind of works best when it's like
a mix of both.
Yeah, it's a mix of both. You got a rotation going, and that's what wrestling requires.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to the main event. We had the final ace in the USA matchup here, non-title. The Alpha Konosuke Takeshita defeats the ace Hiroshi Tanahashi in 20 minutes and 37 seconds.
How long?
20 minutes and 37 seconds.
Wow. Okay. Very, very, very emotional match. Big fight feel and presentation. I loved the video package, loved the entrances. Match kicks off, and it was very exciting. I think that this was worked in a style that suited Tanahashi's capabilities at this current time, very much so. Kind of reminded me in a lot of ways. I know that we made some jokes about it, but it really did sort of remind me of the Ric Flair Shawn Michaels match from WrestleMania 24, where you had a guy that's very gifted and capable and young and experienced taking on like this aged veteran who he has history with, he has experience with, he's never beaten him. And, kind of orchestrating and laying the match out in a way that accentuates the positives and sort of hides the negatives. And Tanahashi, we've talked about times where he is able to get up for the big match when the time comes. And this was one of those situations where, I don't know if he did a few extra stretches or if it was like any given Sundays, they were pumping cortisol into his knees and telling him to get out there and play like he's Lawrence Taylor or whatever the fuck. But, he just seemed to move a little bit better, not much better, but a little bit better. He still had a few botches. There was a senton and a cross body off the ropes. Oh God, it looks so bad. And, but they did a great job making me believe like Tanahashi at a certain point seemed to start catching Takeshita, kind of bamboozling him. Takeshita seemed out of his element and unready for the attack, the game plan that Tanahashi brought to the forefront. And then they started hitting some really incredible near falls to where I was like, fuck, Tanahashi might pull this out. And I wanted him to win so bad, especially with it being non-title and everything. I'm like, come on, let's have him win here. It's non-title, final US date, and let's have the return match for the belt and do some business. Come on, let's send the people home happy. And I wanted that so bad, but it didn't wind up being that way.
Yeah, the whole crowd wanted him to win. There's, big go ace and Tanahashi chants all throughout the match. And anytime Tanahashi was coming back, the fans was getting so into it. And kind of a key spot of the match here was Konosuke jumping off the ropes, jamming his knee on a landing. Of course, that was, blood in the water for Tanahashi. He went after the leg, dragon screws, trying to slow him down there. And then he does, the twist and shout, high fly flow, like hits it, like Takeshita's on the ground and he hits it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. But no, Takeshita kicked out. But yeah, there was so many great near falls here, and Takeshita was killing this man with knees. And you were joking, he's saying he's doing the "I'm sorry, I love you" after doing the knees. And yeah, and got to the end there where Takeshita does his version of the high fly flow, and Tanahashi kicks out at one, and the crowd just losing their mind. And then Takeshita just kind of keeps killing him with the knees. He gets the double knees, and picks him up, raging fire, and that was it. 1, 2, 3, puts him away.
Yeah, that was a very prolonged period where he just kept hitting him with these running knees, and Tanahashi kept kicking out, but you were sort of waiting for the comeback to show up. And this was a little bit Brock Lesnar-esque, like Suplex City, like continually hitting an offensive move and the guy never coming back. And you're like, fuck, that's so dominant. And that's really what it became. It became like a swan song for Tanahashi, where like he just was eating. That's where it got sad, because it was very fun and very exciting and everything until this section down the final tail stretch where it's like he might not be coming back. And
yeah, it was like after the 50, it's like he's not getting it back up.
You started getting to the point where you're like, hey, stay down, dude. Like, right. You don't need to do this. Like, you're the president, bro. I did see, who did I troll online? Was it John from Omikaze?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he mentioned that he had utilized the double knees, which I guess are a staple of Hiroshima's, who, the famous story is like, not only did Tanahashi wrestle Takeshita in DDT, he also wrestled Hiroshima when Hiroshima was like the ace. And that's where he made the disparaging remarks about DDT and was very disrespectful to them and like had to go back and apologize later on and all that stuff. And so there was sort of when Takeshita used those double knees, it was sort of a callback to that whole situation and kind of like a nice little cherry on top, sort of bookended their story together. But I like jumped into his. No one reacted to it, but I thought my shit was funny. I jumped into the responses and I was like, well, actually, that wasn't Hiroshima's move. That was a callback to Sasha Banks hitting the Meteora. But he didn't respond to it. He didn't take the bait. No one else responded to it. I thought my shit was funny. I don't care. But but the match, he just killed him. And he never came back. You're waiting for the comeback, and it just never happens. And it was dominant. And it was like, that was fun for a while it lasted. I think it was, in my personal estimation, probably the best singles match Tanahashi's had in like 3 years. Mm-hmm. I liked it. The only other notable singles matches that he's had in several years were like, there was a Will Ospreay match for Impact, I think, in the States that people liked that I didn't love. And then he had those 2 Okada matches, the one in California and then and they were both okay, but I didn't love them, but I felt like this one was special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think they told a great story. They could have gone the route of, Tanahashi's going to get that one last win, or even like the route of like, oh, you just barely beat me, you young whippersnapper. Like you pulled one on me. It was like, no, like clearly Takeshita was the bigger, badder, better, faster wrestler. And Tanahashi is, the aging veteran that's barely hanging on. And they could have had Tanahashi come back more, but they told a story of like, now this is not, 10, 15 years ago, whenever that match was in DDT. Like, this is a president. Like, Takeshita is a man. Tanahashi is aging out. And that should have been the story. Like, Takeshita is just a higher peak than Tanahashi is right now, and they display that in the match. The story was perfectly told, and towards the end, there was no comeback. It was just the bigger, faster, better wrestler dominating and putting this old veteran away.
Yeah, but it even felt like down the stretch, like, Takeshita, he's been a heel, he's playing a heel, he's got animosity towards Tanahashi, yada yada. And he realized that he was the black hat on this evening, especially with how much love Tanahashi was getting in the States and it being his send-off over here. And I'm a little dubious on that. Like, I know they're saying it's his last match here, but like, do I really believe that he's never, ever, ever going to wrestle a match in the United States? Like, possibly, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he pops up on like a fucking Mania weekend show 2 years from now and works a comedy match at WrestleCon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's totally possible. But anyways, down the stretch, it seemed like the fan in him was starting to come out, because it did become a little bit of a, I'm sorry, I love you. Like, he was gaining respect for the heart, the will, and Rich is probably listening, and it reminded me of like when Larry Holmes beat the fuck out of Muhammad Ali, and like he's telling the ref, like, come on, dude, stop it. I don't want to beat this. I don't want to beat this old man up anymore. Oh man. That's one. I think the referees in New Japan need retraining, because so many times I see dudes knocked out and I'm like, just stop the shit.
Yeah.
Tanahashi needed to be saved from himself on that night.
We had a couple questions here. Doc says, with this being, I believe, Takeshita's fourth American main event, is it safe to say that NJPW sees him as a reliable draw for the company? And do you guys get hyped for all the work the bookers are doing to keep him as a face the fans should rally behind?
I don't think they see him necessarily as a reliable draw. I think they're counting on the idea that he should be a draw based on his exposure in the States and his popularity. But I don't know that it's a proven thing just yet. And I'm not trying to say that in a hater way, but like, I don't know, show me the evidence that when he's added to a card that the house pops. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that that's the case, but I also think that it's a smart move on their part because he's such a great performer. It's giving him as well as the company a lot of exposure. And, that might become the reality. If you continue to put him in the spot and he does well, then yeah, he could become I don't think right now I would call him a reliable draw, but he should be, and he probably will be.
Yeah. And it's not like he is like a TV's top superstar in AEW. Like, yes, he's also incredible and has been pushed more towards upper mid card, but he's not been like a certified main eventer where like, yeah, his TV power should transfer over to New Japan. But also I think the TV exposure does help, and, also having some top programs in AEW. But yeah, I think also if he stays in AEW and continues to do well there, that drawing power will carry over. Kevin from DC says, what is your opinion as a live attendee when an American New Japan show strays from the norm of the world title going on last, or when the champion comes out first instead of second? I understand Tanahashi's last match in America was a big deal, but it was still weird having Takeshita come out first as the defending never champion.
He wasn't defending champion.
That's right. There was so many people who thought this was a title match just because Takeshita was champion, but they never have announced it as a title match. Tanahashi lost a couple matches before this match. So yeah, it was just a special singles non-title Tanahashi's last U.S. match. And this was the match that drew fans. I mean, there were so many fans that I saw online or that I talked to when I was there that were like, yeah, the reason I came to this show was to see Tanahashi's last U.S. match. There was people
that's the only reason I went.
Yeah. And there were several people I talked to the meetup that drove over from St. Louis. They were like, made this drive. Yeah, I wanted to see Tanahashi's last match. And that was the key draw here. That was the big attraction. So that should have been the last match. Like, it would have been a disaster had they put that crappy Umino match on last after an emotional, send off for Tanahashi. Like, this was definitely,
that would have been a nightmare.
Yeah, this was definitely the right call. Also, it was a last minute thing because, up until Showtime, they were advertising this thing as the title match as being the main event. So I'm glad they switched double main evento, put this thing on last. That was the right call. And that was the match that drew people in. That was the emotional match. That building would have been empty had they put the title match on last. He also asks, what can we do to take Takeshi's theme, make Takeshi's theme even longer? I'm taking, make it 8, 12, 15 minutes. I don't care. Give me all the Takeshi DDT theme music.
I don't know what his DDT theme is. I only know, is his theme different in AEW? Because I only know the one that sounds like the Nitro music.
Yeah, they've dropped that one. He's using.
What?
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure he just uses the DDT one now.
Fuck that. Bring back the one that they got rid of the one that sounds like Nitro?
I think they did, yeah. Or maybe I can't remember.
I don't know. I'm not a
I think he might use both, actually. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't hear it in the building, so it didn't matter to me.
And then last question here, DefRango720 says, do you think the strong card could have cut down 2 matches?
I'll always advocate wrestling shows cutting down 2 matches. Always. Including like a WWE pay-per-view. Cut down 2 of those matches. Just give us 3 on the night instead of 4. You know, if they only have 4, cut down 2 of those matches. We just need to see, 2 basically.
So 2 matches and then a bunch of commercials is what you want.
Well, I won't watch them live. I'll just but yeah, give me the Tiffany Stratton match and the Gunther match. And that's it. That's all we need. We're good.
Yeah, I mean, you could have cut the TJP Tom Lawler match. That match wasn't necessarily needed.
I know the other match I would definitely cut.
What, the women's match?
You know it. Fuck, I need that on a New Japan. You guys want the authentic New Japan experience, I thought, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have a plunder match. Boom. All right. We're already more authentic with that. Mm-hmm. Now it's time to get really authentic. Shinihan is a promotion for men. Men only. Men first.
Oh my gosh.
Men.
Let's move on. So that was Windy City Riot. So next thing we got to talk about is Jeff Cobb. So Jeff Cobb is leaving NJPW. New Japan announced that Cobb would be leaving the promotion. As a result, would be vacating the IWGP Tag Team titles with Callum Newman. And his final match will be April 19th at Corkin Hall when he faces Tanahashi in a singles match. So there was a press conference earlier today, and Newman was seen with both belts and mentioned the recent backstage comments made by Cobb about wanting to face the IWGP champion Hirooki Goto, saying he's now the one issuing the challenge to the champion. So obviously a lot of card shakeup happened, and we'll go over the announced cards. But yeah, Newman kind of making comments, kind of being frustrated about Cobb leaving and vacating the titles. And there will be a title match with Bishamon against Newman and Great O'Khan, and the winner will become the new tag team champions. But obviously this sparked a lot of discussion on the internet. Cobb had a lot of comments prior to this, trolling, what about it now, internet, after him winning the title? So Cobb making a lot of comments, and then with this news dropping, there was a ton of speculations, ton of conversation happening on the Reddits, in our Discords, and this whole back and forth stuff. And it's official of Callum Newman challenging for the world title with Hirooki Goto. So there's a lot of discourse on whether or not Newman's even should be challenging for the title. So Josh, I've seen you kind of going back and forth in Discord. What are your whole thoughts on this whole Jeff Cobb situation?
I wouldn't say I've been going back and forth. I'd pop in.
Having conversations. I've kind of seen some of your opinions.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm not having conversations. There are people having conversations with me and with others and themselves. I'm not having a conversation. I'm going in and reading a comment, singling it out, responding to it, and then shutting the app off because I'm too busy to be in there all day. And then I come back in and 50 comments have occurred and I don't know what anyone fucking said. And I didn't see the response to me. So I'm not going back and forth. And that's not me being petty. I don't know what the fuck's going on in there. All I know is in the last few days, I've learned that people really don't like, in our Discord in particular, they don't like Hanare. And they don't like Callum Newman. And I'm like, what the fuck are we talking about? They're both fucking awesome. And they're they suck. There's probably more artistic, well thought out, reasoned conversation points that people are making, but I'm not reading any of it. The basic of it is Hanare bad. Callum Newman bad. Shota Umino good. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Cool, bro.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that Cobb is in fact leaving. And you know why? Because I didn't want to look like a fool believing that this dude was leaving for all this reason. And I even last week, I told you I was holding out hope. I think he might be leaving. And when people were like, oh, they put the tag team titles on him, I'm like, well, we've seen this company put titles on dudes that they knew were leaving, like Tama Tonga and like Carl Anderson, not even that long ago in the recent past. And every time they've done it, those dudes got pulled or were told to leave early, and it came back to bite them in the fucking ass, and they haven't learned their lesson here. Here's what I think really was happening, because I saw a lot of discourse. I heard comments people made, and there was so much criticism about Jeff Cobb and what he was doing. And the prevailing thought was that he leaked the information about himself leaving the company when in fact he was never actually leaving. Like, that's what people were thinking because of how much he was still winning in New Japan. It started to shift the viewpoint that people thought he was leaving, and they're like, oh, it's a work. And they were like, and he's a dork for caring more about him leaving than anybody else is, because he's turned every story point with his trajectory in the company into, I worked you internet, you don't fucking know anything, blah, blah, blah. And that became a sticking point for a lot of the smart fans, where they're like, they don't want to be worked. And they're like, he looks like an idiot. One of two things: either he is actually leaving and nobody really cared that much. They were just like kind of happy, and they're like, yeah, that makes sense. It's probably the right time for him to go and all that. Or he shopped around, couldn't get a deal, and was forced to stay, or he never really intended to leave. And now he looks like an idiot for having leaked that, and then turning around and trying to bite down on the media and play it to his own strengths. Like, that's what the prevailing thought was from a lot of people. I will tell you the truth, Jeremy, we haven't talked about it, but I never thought that was the case. I've always thought that he was still leaving, because I just don't have faith in the New Japan office to not continually try to do business with WWE to some extent and do a talent share thing and have open communication, only for WWE to fuck them over in the end. And I've kind of thought that was probably what was happening here. And once we started to get the scuttlebutt that he might be challenging for the title, my viewpoint was that him winning all these matches and getting these title shots and getting that title was all building to him having his final title shot against Goto and then leaving the company. And now, with everything we know today, I do think that's where it was going. And WWE, and I don't know this, like, I can't say for sure that what happened. Don't get me wrong. I'm not telling anybody that I know that this is the case, but I know this is the case in my heart. He was going to challenge for the title against Goto, and this was intended to be like a CM Punk-esque. He's on his way out, and we know, and it was going to, I think that they were going to do like a Summer of Punk sort of thing. Like, he's on his way out and I might take the title with me. Who knows? That sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Or at the very least, like, is he staying? Is he going? Nobody knows. The internet doesn't fucking know. And try and draw some attraction and some interest to maybe make some money on his way out. And I think WWE just pulled the fucking rug from under everybody and was like, nope, that's it. Come home. And I almost kind of, that they don't like people to lose in big prominent matches on the way out. I wouldn't be surprised if they were like, yeah, we're going to let you win the tag titles. We're going to let you do your little run, and then you're going to challenge Goto, and then you're going to lose and then finish up your dates. That's super admirable. And then deep down, someone in the back was like, he's going to win those tag titles. And then you tell him to get the fuck over here.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened. And I think that's why they have so suddenly shifted to Callum Newman suddenly being the guy, because they don't have anything else worked out in the current meantime within United Empire to have a prominent challenger. So I think this is a very quick shift and pivot that was unexpected for the company.
Yeah, and based on the way the cards are laid out, so the Wrestling Red Zone in Hiroshima is where the vacant title match is happening, and then Newman's challenging a few days later, Dontaku Night 2, and so I think it's very clear that the plan was going to be Bishamon versus Goto and Newman, and that would serve as a preview for Goto Cobb, would also be a title match. And then you would do, you would have Cobb and Newman win that. And it's like, Cobb just having pinned Goto, they retain the tag titles, he pins the champion, and then he would have gone on to Dontaku, faced Goto, lost to Goto, and then probably would have had one more match to drop the tag titles and then would have been out of there.
Yeah, I think that was the plan. And I think that, probably New Japan management was aware that this like little angle was happening. They probably knew he was signed. They probably knew he was going to wrap up the dates, and they were like, let's try to do some business off of it, have some fun, yada yada. and then WWE just pivoted and was like, nah, fuck that. You need to come to the PC, learn how to do some rolls right now.
Yeah, that's all the reports. Because even when he won the tag titles, there were still outlets saying, he's only going to be around till possibly Dontaku or Dominion. And then the news started coming out today. A lot of sources were saying, WWE changed the start date, and that was the call for the change. And a lot of people at our Discord are complaining about Callum Newman getting a shot and why wasn't other people? But it's like they just can't blow up like 5 or 6 cards just to try to change things up. Like Newman was going to be kind of involved with being the tag champs with Cobb, and so I think to kind of save a lot of what they did, like that was probably the easiest thing to do without having to blow up all of their cards. And then also, too, if you look at it, it's like I laid it out in the Discord. I'm like, a lot of the credible challengers are either tied up or kind of put to the side right now. It's like Zach too soon for a rematch. Finley just lost. Takeshita's never champion. Tsuji's the global champion. Gabe Kidd just lost to Ishii. Like all the top guys that you would want to throw in there have either just lost or tied up. Naito's still teaming with Hiromu on this tour. Like all the top guys are busy or just lost. And so there's not really somebody that you could credibly just throw in there to face Goto.
I don't disagree. I do a little bit when you say that they can't just blow up and change things on a fly. They could. They've done that before.
I mean, they could, but for sake of like less of a headache, it's like, do we like shred these cards and start over? Or do we just put Okan in for Cobb and then put Newman in for Cobb in the main event?
Okay, just as a for instance, and not saying that this makes all the sense in the world or that they should have done it, but could they have just ripped up the card and been like, all right, so now we don't have a title challenger, so we're going to throw Shingo Takagi and Taichi in a number 1 contenders match. Shingo wins, and then he gets the title shot. You know what I mean? Like just on a whim or something like that.
Yeah, they could have done that. They could have done a quick mini tournament. All right, we're gonna have like a 4-man tournament winners.
Could they have just thrown in like Oleg Boltin on a whim? Be like, all right, we're just gonna throw in Boltin. But here's the thing: Cobb wasn't gonna win the title, so whoever it is that you're gonna throw in there, everyone's complaining. But it's like who you're complaining about who gets the shot. As if it's real, as if the person has an actual. I think what they're afraid of is that Callum Newman might win this shit or something,
Yeah.
And now I'm just playing, but like, really, what you're arguing about is who do you want to lay down their shoulders for the 1, 2, 3 to Goto at the end of the day? You know what I mean? It's okay. Like, do you want it? Let's go down the list. Do you want it to be Narita eating the loss? Do you want it to be Tsuji eating the loss? Do you want it to be Gabe Kidd eating the loss? Oleg Boltin? Tell me, which one of the Reiwa guys do you want to lose here? Do you need it to be Uemura? Do you need it to be Oiwa? Because whoever it is, they're losing. And I think that part is kind of missing in all this. And like you said, I think it just makes the most sense to just keep everything status quo, kind of pivot away. Sometimes some of the best like stories that you can do in a wrestling context are quick pivots from whatever was going on. I've seen some arguments where people are like, well, Newman hasn't done anything to really earn this. And you know what? That's true. But you know what it is? It's just good timing. Like he just happened to be the guy that was in the faction with the dude who was going to get the title shot, who he was tag team partners with when they held the titles. And now they're shifting away from it and they need to just have a body in there to be the one to lay down for Goto. He's just in the right spot at the right time. And it's Providence. Mm-hmm. That's it. And you know what? It's probably going to be good. And that's the funny part about it.
Yeah.
People are so pissed.
It's not going to be better than the Umino match, or he's as bad as Matt Vandergriff.
Bro, get the fuck out of here entirely. Like, come on. Don't get me wrong. I do think that there are issues with what I've seen from him so far. I think that there is a lack of like psychology sometimes where the shit he's doing in his matches don't really make a lot of sense. Like there's emphasis on like a body part selling and then it just and I'm not a Nazi on that stuff, but like it just completely goes out the window and then maybe comes back in later. It makes no sense. Or like some of his work just is kind of weird. But like the dude's like, he's 22, right? 23,
mm-hmm. 22. Yeah.
Like 22. He's probably honestly better suited at this current time, having been on like the super indies. If the US super indies like still existed, they just don't, or having been in a vibrant Brit res scene when that was vibrant, but it just doesn't exist. So he's here, and he's learning on the job. And I feel very confident from what I've seen from him athletically that he is somebody that is going to be special. Now, I don't know if I do see some charisma holes where I think that there needs to be his confidence level, his persona, his like the way he emotes emotionally and connects with the crowd. I think that his charisma, those things all could be adjusted. There's the little things in between that I think are kind of missing. And I think that some of the psychology is missing. But like when people are like, he's a bad wrestler. The fuck are you talking about? Mechanically, he's fucking great. Athletically, he's phenomenal. And he has so much raw, untapped talent at a guy that's his age. And he's just continuing to improve. And that's the funny thing. They act like he's not improving. I'm like, what are you talking about? Every time I see him, he's better.
When he first came in New Japan to where he is now, I think he's gotten so much better and continues to get better. And I agree with you. Yeah, there are some holes in his game, but he's working in the dojo. He's improving. And yeah, he's so super talented. The stuff that he can do, like if he can put it all together, like he's going to be a superstar. He's going to follow in the footsteps of his trainer, Will Ospreay. And Ospreay had a lot of the same criticisms when he first came in. And people are like, oh, he's just a flippy dude guy and he doesn't know how to wrestle. And look what happened to Ospreay. Like he became like this vicious striker, became one of the best wrestlers in the world. And maybe Newman won't get quite to that level, but if he continues to kind of, patch up those holes in his games and really taps into that athleticism and that speed and all the cool stuff he can do, like I can see this guy becoming a superstar easily.
Here's another thing about it. Okay, I get it if people have issues with him and they're not entirely in love with his work, that's fine. And at the same time, I saw one comment. Someone was like, well, he should be like better before he gets this shot. But it's like, historically, it doesn't totally line up. If you go through the annals of the IWGP and you look at people that got their first title shot, they weren't all made guys and ready for that position and the first time out when they had their title shot. Some of them got it early and a little too early and weren't ready for the position and weren't a finished product themselves, and still were able to kind of rebound from the loss, use it as a learning opportunity, and come back stronger later in the future. I think it's perfectly fine for him to be the May title defense as Goto is clearly at this point proving me wrong, where I thought that he'd be done already, where they're padding his stats, and it's looking more and more likely that if this guy doesn't drop the title at Dominion or like at, say, like a Forbidden Door.
Well, Forbidden Door is after G1 this year.
Oh, then never mind. If he doesn't drop that belt in June at Dominion or July or whenever the fuck it is, that's it. we're off to the races with Goto.
G in G1 stands for Goto.
not only that, but like he's probably going to the Dome at that point. Like this is gonna be crazy. I didn't expect all this shit from this dude, but here we are. It's fine. It's fine, guys. It's gonna be okay. I promise you. And do you really think that Hirooki Goto can't do something with the kid? You think he can't get anything at all out of the kid? You think that this is just going to suck? I don't know. But some of those people, they also hated everything that he did in the G1. And I'm like, I don't know. It's pretty fucking awesome to me. Like,
yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I'm the wrong person to ask. I like entertaining wrestlers who are athletic and try hard and
do cool stuff
and do cool shit, you know? Sue me. I don't know.
And like this opportunity is all in Newman's hands right now. Either he's going to flop and it ends up being a bad title match, or he, grabs the brass ring and proves himself and has a killer match with Goto. Like there's only positives really from here from this matchup.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's exciting. I don't know if it's like gonna be a high drawing match or anything, but I think it's cool.
Yeah,
and I don't know. Some of y'all pissed, but it could be worse. We could be watching Shota Umino again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, we had several questions here. Very scary Terry Berry says, with Jeff Cobb leaving New Japan for WWE, is it time the United Empire to just disband like Chaos did?
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's a faction we've kind of talked about that could potentially use a shakeup. I mean, Cobb gone, TJP is not full-time anymore, Aussie Ospreay being gone. So, yeah, I mean, there could be a shakeup there. Ramblin says, Gato and putting titles on people already signed to another promotion, which is notorious for being difficult to work with. Name a more iconic duo.
The Macho Man Randy Savage and the First Lady of the World Wrestling Federation, Miss Elizabeth.
Rich says, in relation to Callum Newman, why are white wrestlers not allowed to do flips or be athletic without people seizing up?
I don't know. It didn't seem to help Kevin Knight and his perception either. So I don't know. I think it goes both ways. I don't think it's a race thing so much as it is just a stylistic thing. It's like, I think people are afraid, they're afraid of the flips.
Yeah.
They're afraid that they want, their New Japan Wrestling to be super Japanese pro wrestling. You know what I mean? They want it to be, I don't want to say like puro because it's like, they're not advocating for like the strong, big Japan style of wrestling. Like that's not what they're angling for. Like they don't want it to be like the Pillars, like super hard style wrestling or what have you. They're not hoping that it turns in like Tenru or like, the classic 90s New Japan heavyweight style, but they want it to be what they're used to, what they like out of domestic Japanese New Japan Pro Wrestling in like modern times. And they don't want it to be the Bucks and Kenny and the Elite. And that's what they're afraid of. That's why ELP that's part of the reason why ELP did and does get so much hate. I think it's part of the apprehension to embrace Kevin Knight, especially going as a heavyweight. And I think that's part of the reason they don't like Callum Newman. I think that subconsciously it is a stylistic apprehension. They don't like high speed athletic wrestlers who can outpace and outperform a lot of the Japanese wrestlers that they like that can't do those things.
The anti-flip agenda.
I do think that is part of it. And you know what? I understand that what the statement that I'm making a little bit is broad and maybe painting a lot of people into a particular like box. And I'm sure that there's probably some people listening that like, that's not the case. And I have different reasons. Rambo says, when is the white man ever going to get a break? I agree. No, I'm just playing. But I do think that I don't think that that is a non-factor in why people feel this way. You know what I mean? Like, and that's okay. Like, I think it's okay if you can just like admit, like, I stylistically don't like this, then just say that. But it's like, that's not what's usually said. They usually say these people can't work.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, they can. Just say you don't like it's the same thing on the other side where there's people who like Zack Sabre Jr. can't wrestle. He's not a good wrestler. He's boring. It's like, no, you just don't like his style of wrestling. He's like literally one of the greatest of all time. You just don't get it. And it's okay to turn around and be like, I don't get the Young Bucks.
Yeah.
Or any other
Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay.
Or Will Ospreay, you know? But what's not okay is for us to pretend like Shota Umino is good, because we all know Shota Umino is not good.
Kevin from DC has a couple questions. First, he says, checks my notes. I forgot to ask a question during the Sakura Genesis recap, so I wanted to make sure I got it in this week. I thought Cobb was supposed to be leaving. What happened? Nothing else here. I'll hang up and listen. So I'll see making a joke there. So the next question, he says, what do you reckon is the impetus for giving the Dontaku main event to Callum Newman? Obviously, the major plan suggests that the match was Goto versus Cobb, and that is a simple pivot within the faction. But do you think Newman actually factors into the company's heavyweight plans going forward? Will he get the same level of push Tsuji, Uemura, Umino, etc.? Or do you see him regressing back to lower mid-card following the Goto match?
I think a lot of that is going to be dependent on the reception he gets and the level of work. This is a very pivotal match for him, where the opportunity is on the table for him to really make a name for himself, impress the right people, and have a great outing and potentially rise his stock. I don't think even if he has like a killer match that he's automatically going to suddenly be booked on the same level as Tsuji. That's not happening. But if the match isn't great, it would be very easy for them to, you know, scale him back down the card. It doesn't hurt anybody. And, you know, that's just what it is. So it's going to be very precarious for him, honestly. And I'm sure Goto's going to do a lot to try and help him, probably.
Yeah, I mean, if he hits a home run, I think that does a lot of favors for him in the office. And like you mentioned, obviously, we know New Japan, they do a lot of long-term booking. So obviously having a great match is probably not going to maybe change a lot of what he has coming up this year. But that's probably going to set him up for next year. And like, all right, we can trust this guy to go in there and have a killer main event. Let's start moving him up the card. He also asked, on that note, what do you see the finish being in Bishamon versus United Empire for the tag titles? Callum pinning Goto, Callum pinning Yoshihashi, or something else entirely?
I don't know, but Callum's teaming up with who? Great Okan?
Yeah.
So either way, whoever wins that match there's gonna be a double champion situation, whether it's Okan with the TV title or Goto with the world titles. That's a very interesting thing. I'm not ready to make my predictions yet, honestly.
Yeah, we'll do more of a preview when we get closer to that title match. His last question here: assuming that United Empire survives the rest of 2025, who should emerge as leader? Okan, Newman, TJP, Hinare when he returns, Umino, LOL, or someone else entirely?
As of right now, I would honestly say someone else, and I feel like that's been the case since Will Ospreay left. And if you're not willing to do that, then maybe just disband, honestly.
Yeah, none of those guys just really feel at the level to be like a top. Obviously Newman's kind of getting the title match by default, but outside of that, none of those guys really feel like a top leader that could be consistently in the main event. So, yeah, either somebody else or, maybe it's time to split some of these guys up.
Well, we have some cards announced coming up in the next few weeks. Next week, we'll be covering NJPW Road to Wrestling Dontaku Night 1 from Cork and Hall on April 19th. I'm not going to go through the entire card for the sake of brevity, but I will point out a few matches. We've got a 6-match card that night. We will be getting Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Jeff Cobb. I believe this is Jeff Cobb's final match in the company.
Yeah.
I had to talk with Rich about it. He was talking about, Tanahashi beating Cobb on the way out and sending him away. And I was like, I don't think that's happening. And he's like, that'd be crazy, And I was like, dude, I honestly think that Tanahashi, when he wrestles anybody that's like under 37, who's not a dad, not a young lion, or not Taguchi, he's just going to lose to them. Like, he's putting everybody over on the way out. So I don't see any reason why him beating, Cobb. I think Cobb's going to beat him, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be totally fine, though, if Tanahashi did beat him.
Yeah, so that should be very interesting. And then the main event of the evening, well, I guess the top 2 matches, we got Desperado, Goto, and Taguchi taking on United Empire's Callum Newman, Jacob Austin Young, and Templario. So we've got some previews there. And then the main event is 10-man tag team elimination matches. LIJ's Bushi, Hiromu, Shingo, Naito, and Tsuji take on just 4 guys, Taichi, Taka, Yuya, along with Shota Umino and Yoshihashi. So kind of an interesting show there. We've got a lot of preview tags on the night. This is your standard Row 2 fare. Next week, we'll be previewing these shows that are coming up. We have NJPW Wrestling Red Zone in Hiroshima on April 26th from Hiroshima Sun Plaza. On that evening, again, the matches that I'll point out here that are kind of interesting. The main event we talked about, Bishamon versus the United Empire's Callum Newman and Great Kong to determine the new IWGP Tag Team Champions. That's going to be the biggest match of the evening. You also have Taichi and Tomohiro Ishii teaming up, which I believe is for the first time ever, to take on Hiromu and Naito. And that feels like that might have tag title implications written all over it as well. Yeah. And I think it's very interesting to have Taichi and Ishii, after their history together, to kind of finally team up here in this situation.
Yeah.
And then aside from that, we have wrestling. I'm used to it being Hino no Kuni, but for some reason it's Hizen no Kuni. I don't know the difference because I don't speak Japanese.
Yeah, I don't know what the difference is.
But the Saga Ariana or Arena on April 29th, Hiroshi Tanahashi is doing a one of those young lion opener matches against Masatori Yasuda, who was injured earlier in the year, was unable to take part in Tanahashi's young lion run. So Tanahashi going to get back in the win column here, beating up on young Yasuda. And then we've got some big matches, and on the down tail end stretch of the card, you got Great Khan versus El Phantasmo for the World Television title. Ichiban Sweet Boys will defend the IWGP Junior Tag Team titles against Wato and Yo. And then the main event, El Desperado versus Templario for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title. And then we finally here have nights 1 and nights 2 of Dontaku that have been announced coming up in May from the Fukuoka Convention Center. And the big matches on those evenings coming up on night 1, you have Tanahashi versus Zack Sabre Jr., Shingo Takagi versus Shota Umino. The main event is Dog Pound Cage match as the House of Torture takes on the Bull Club War Dogs. We did have a question from Kevin from DC. Says, of the 10 participants in the dog cage match, who do you see suffering a major injury forcing retirement? My money is on, of course, Seiya Sanada.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, last dog pound cage match, somebody got their head split and almost died. So, I mean,
to me, okay, this to me screams we're not going to have the match that those dudes had, and this is going to set a new standard.
Shenanigans.
Remember, think about it. Remember when Hell in a Cell first started, and the first 2 or 3 were so fucking violent, and eventually it was well, we can't do that. So then you got Michaels and Triple H having their fucking epic 45-minute. No one really ever got hurt, and it just kind of sucked. And then you had Jericho. You had the Triple H versions of the match, which were, I feel like these dudes, these House of Torture guys are like, oh, we're going to slow shit down, way down. Did you see Show? Show had a cage match. Did you see Show versus Despy?
That's what we're doing.
That's a flavor of what we're going to be doing here. So just get ready.
Yeah. Also interesting on that night too, Takesha's going to have a mystery partner taking on ELP and Jado.
Yeah, I saw that too. So that's very interesting. One moment, my dog I don't know, man. He's getting like older and grumpy, and he's like trying to muscle me and decide when I do or don't do things, and like it's kind of pissing me off. I'm like, no, bro, like you're like 11 pounds. We're not doing what you want to do just because you decided it's time for me to be done recording. On night 2, May 4th, Kyosho Pro Wrestling, which is a favorite indie staple in the area and brings with it local favorites. They'll be bringing in Jet Wee and Mentai Kid and Batten Barbera, as well as Tajiri in New Japan for the first time in 15 years, and the promotion leader, Ryota Chikuzin. So these guys are going to be up and down the card. Night 2 of Wrestling Dontaku, which is a little bit kind of surprising. But some of the other sort of surprising stuff, we got a Stardom Showcase match on the evening. We don't know who's involved in that. ELP and Oleg Boltin will be taking on Takeshita and his mystery partner. So that's also kind of interesting. The top 2 matches of the evening, though, you got Yota Tsuji defending the global title against Yuya Uemura, and Hirooki Goto defending the world title against Callum Newman. We did have a question here from Hukong 901 says, I'm asking because it was kind of glossed over in the last podcast. How are y'all feeling about Yuya challenging Tsuji for the white belt? I've read speculations that Yuya taking it off Tsuji will free Tsuji up for the G1 win. How are you feeling about that idea? Would it be dope? Not going to hold. I don't know what he said there, but yeah, he seems excited about that prospect.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Samsa about this past weekend. We were kind of fancy booking out, who does Goto face for the rest of the year? And I was like, yeah, if Goto's going to the Dome, I would love it. Yeah, you have Tsuji drop the global, Tsuji wins G1, you do Tsuji Goto as the Tokyo Dome World Title match, and you have Tsuji beat Goto.
And you have Goto win.
So I mean,
holds on top.
I think the Tsuji Uemura match is going to be good. Also, there's a lot of history there. These guys have great chemistry. They've had great matches in the past, and I mean, I don't know if I feel like Yuya's. I still think there's something missing with him, and I don't know if he's quite ready for that push. But maybe this is a thing he needs to kind of help him get to that next level. But I do think it would be a good idea to get that global title off of Tsuji to get him up into the world title picture.
Yeah, I'm kind of not sure how I feel about Tsuji versus Yuya Uemura, because it's like they have so much history with one another, and that is a really big, kind of story between those two guys. But we've kind of rushed back to it again when it felt like we sort of put it to rest for the time being a little bit. Obviously I know that like Uemura was injured in the match with Tsuji, but it was a G1 match. You know what I mean? like G1 matches sort of facilitate an ongoing story, but they're not, to me, as definitive as outside singles matches typically would be. Mm-hmm. I guess it is somewhat classic booking to go back to a particular feud, especially if like an injury had occurred. So it kind of makes sense. But with, with Tsuji, I don't know if I feel like Tsuji's had a super strong global title reign thus far. Like, if I had to say, like, if this was being treated as some sort of test run for how he may potentially handle himself or acquit himself as a world title, I don't think that this is really given me a lot of confidence about his future prospects. Not to say that he himself, prior to the run, hadn't had great matches and hadn't impassioned himself to the fans, but Like this has been, in my estimation, a kind of lackluster title run. I much more prefer like what Finlay did with the title. And honestly, Finlay had a greater array of opponents to work with and a lot longer to kind of establish that belt. So it would seem a little premature to have him just come off the belt right now. But yeah, perhaps it is to get him ready for G1. Plus, they were really pushing and building up Uemura in the G1 last year prior to the injury, and he is returning. But there is that old adage about guys returning from injury and not being ready because it's too soon, and that kind of feeds into their loss. But there's going to be people that are going to be really fucking pissed about Uemura coming back and doing the JOB day one, especially to Tsuji specifically.
Yeah, I mean, since Uemura's been back, I mean, they haven't really pushed him super hard. He lost to actually he ended up beating Sonata again, but he has lost some stuff coming back, and yeah, he's been kind of in this undercard feud with Sonata, and so he hasn't really been pushed as a top star. And Tsuji, whether you like the matches or not, has kind of been pushed, as a kind of main event or some main event guy, having top feuds at the Gabe Kid match, obviously the prolonged Evil program, and so Tsuji's just been established up the card than Uemura. And so, I mean, I could see, like you're saying, the old Puro trope of, yeah, the injured guy is still not 100% and loses, plus Tsuji's just higher up right now than Uemura. I think there's a lot working against Yuya going into that match.
Yeah, and I mean, you could definitely have Uemura win, but just because you beat somebody doesn't make you them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure that him beating him will 100% elevate him to the level where we take him as seriously as Tsuji. That's not, and again, I don't know, this goes back to the conversations we were having pre-injury where we were sort of evaluating Uemura's, his progress within the company and everything like that at the time. And now he's back, and it's sort of like we're having to pick up where we left off all that time ago. But yeah, that's going to do it. So we've got one show that's coming up, one road to between now and next week. And then we'll be previewing a few of these other shows. And we've got some exciting stuff on the horizon. I don't know if I love this idea of bringing in this indie group for night 2 of Dantaku. I mean, I love doing weird, zany stuff like that, but maybe not like on a quote unquote major show. I also don't love that they're breaking up the shows again into the 2 nights because it seems unneeded.
Yeah, I mean, if you put together the 2 Dantaku cards, you can make a really great card out of all the big matches.
Yeah, but at the same time, like this is that time of the year, when we get like, Dantaku, Hino no Kuni, and blah blah blah,
Satsuma no Kuni, and
Satsuma no Kuni, and it gets really weird and kind of like convoluted. And now we've got Red Zone. Get in the zone.
Yeah.
Anyways, in the news, Kevin Knight revealed in an interview with Sports Illustrated that he signed to both All Elite Pro Wrestling and New Japan Pro Wrestling. He was quoted as saying, "Since last week, the word's gotten out."
That's a question from Kevin from DC.
Well, it just said Kevin, so I thought Kevin. I thought you put in a quote from Kevin Knight. I started reading. I said, "This doesn't sound right." Yeah, so Kevin from DC says, since last week, the word's gotten out that Kevin Knight now has a dual contract with New Japan and AEW that should hopefully lessen the outrage towards double agent Rocky Romero. He has announced he wants to leave the juniors and move to heavyweight in time for G1 in the summer. My question here is, do you see the Knight, or do you see Knight coming back to Japan enough to make a dent in the heavyweight division? I don't. He was barely featured in Japan, even when he was junior tag team champion. So I don't understand why things would suddenly change now that he's going to hopefully be featured more in AEW.
Yeah, well, I think also the AEW stature, I think, will kind of help him out in booking. But, I mean, I could see him having a very good G1, and there are going to be some spots that open up this year with certain departures and people kind of moving up and down the card, and the play-ins, they're moving some of the older guys out. So I definitely think there's a spot for him in G1, and I think he could have a very good G1. We were talking about, last week, yeah, he's a guy that doesn't really look like a junior anymore, and he's really filled out. So it makes a ton of sense with him being a dual contract to put him in G1. I mean, will he end up, getting to the semifinals, the final four, the play-ins? I don't know about that. But I think it'll be a great fresh face to have in that lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I think I do think that there is a little bit of smoke to the fire with the Rocky Romero thing. Just saying. I know I wasn't on the episode where they asked about that question, and I guess it was probably good that I wasn't on that episode because I probably could have spoke a little bit to that. But the thing with Kevin Knight is like, sure, I understand why someone might say like him coming in as a heavyweight might not make much more difference than how it was as a junior. But as we all know, that the spotlight is much more on the heavyweights than it is on the juniors. And if he were to have a good outing and get over and connect with the audience, and he already has such background with the company as it is, that might be reason enough to give him a little bit more of a prominent spot. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm under no illusions that he'll be working more dates than he was before. If anything, it'll probably be less dates, but it would be nice to have a guy that is dependable to come in for G1s, who is a really top-notch performer and somebody that, I think that the company has always known, like, he's a very rare talent, athletically gifted. We want to do something with him. And then having invested some time and money into him and then to see him go away, that would have been unfortunate. Now they can kind of continue where they left off to some degree and get a little bit more out of him. And I think that if they're able to utilize him in the right way, it's a win-win for everybody. And not very different from what they were doing when he was an Impact in the first place. So, I think there could be some upside there, but that's really for now. That's going to do it for the news. We got a few questions and we're going to get out of here.
Yeah. So, Bungholi Lamadi asks, why is everyone talking about The Rock wearing a lion mark shirt? The guy that's trying to solve a Rubik's Cube, for crying out loud. Those things are hard to solve. Have you ever tried to solve a Rubik's Cube? They no sell.
Actually, it's not hard to solve the Rubik's Cube at all, to be honest. I can't do it myself, but there's a pattern. Do you know about this, Jeremy?
No.
There's a pattern. It's a very easy pattern. If you know the pattern, it's just a few moves. And every time you do this pattern, you're not actually figuring anything out. You're just doing the pattern. And if you do these moves in order, you will always solve the Rubik's Cube.
I wonder if old Dwayne knows the pattern.
I could probably find it and, get it up there. But like, that's how, like, there's people who like solve the Rubik's Cube, like in world record speeds, because they know the pattern. The pattern is like, do. It's just a couple of things that you have to do.
Yeah.
It's a 7-step. Yeah.
Well, outside of that, I don't know why people were losing their minds with The Rock wearing the old lion mark there.
I mean, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. But I think people are making more of it than what it actually is.
Potentially. And also maybe not. Hard to say. But we appropriated that photo and we put the Keepin It Strong Style logo on it. And hopefully we sell some chopped cheese off of it. So thank you.
Very scary Terry Berry says, we live in a day and age where the United States of America is threatening Canada, Greenland, Panama, and Gaza with invasion. The measles, bird flu, COVID, and the mumps are running wild around the country. Animals are being brought back from extinction like Jurassic Park. An asteroid is coming to Earth in the year 2032. John Cena is a heel. CM Punk is main event at WrestleMania. Hirooki Goto is the world champion. And The Rock is rocking a New Japan t-shirt despite being on the board of WWE. Now, I know Jeremy is a God-fearing man, so let me ask you, Jeremy, are we living in the end times? And what are the odds we see the final boss show up at Security Genesis, smacking the goosebumps on his arm like an idiot, all while having a stare down with Hiroshi Tanahashi?
Whoa. All right. Listen, you said a lot of stuff there. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but don't talk shit about The Rock smacking his arm with the goosebumps. That shit's awesome. Yeah. Who doesn't love The Rock smacking his forearm? You don't love that shit. I don't know if you like wrestling. This might not be for you.
Yeah, I highly doubt we will see a Rock New Japan appearance, but I mean, if it's anybody that can make it happen, it would be Hiroshi Tanahashi. Fauci says last time Suzuki worked a singles match in New Japan was Windy City Riot 2024, and I think only the Death Beast show since then. Do you see him coming back much more before he retires?
Maybe. Probably not.
Maybe a Tanahashi match, but yeah, I don't really see him coming back at this point.
I mean, there'd probably be some money in him and Goto for the world title.
Yeah.
The most losingest guy versus the next most losingest challenging guy. You know, one last run, olds versus olds. Let's get it, you know?
Yeah.
Let's make some money.
Tony Farrakhan says the rule of good journalism is not asking a yes or no question. However, do you believe the winner of Best of Super Juniors will defeat El Desperado for the title?
I don't know. Yes, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, kind of hard to say this early, but I mean, I don't think we necessarily need SPS champion, so I would welcome the winner beating him. All right, well, that's it for the questions. Did you watch the Kushida Neon match?
Nope, but I know you did, Jeremy, so why don't you take us through that match?
Okay, well, yeah, I watched it 2 weeks ago. I mean, it was a good match. I think that people are maybe a little bit higher on it than I ended up being on it. But, I mean, it was a good, fun match. I mean, it's an MLW, TV match, and it's the Kushida, he's working the arm, doing the hoverboard lock. And then Neon is just super talented. He's doing a lot of his big, high-flying stuff. So it's kind of that clash of styles of the submission base versus the high-flying. And towards the end, it was Kushida hitting the, what's he called, his small package driver, the Back to the Future on Neon to get the win. Yeah.
So where are you going on this one?
I'd probably maybe go like 3.5.
Oh, wow.
It's not going to hit the ballot.
Sounds like this shit might have been overblown a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you know what? The thing is, it's MLW. So when you get a 3.5 TV match in MLW, it's like
it's noteworthy. It's worthy.
Yeah, you gotta go out. You gotta watch this.
You gotta see this shit. They had because that's what 3.5 is. Yeah. By the way, it's very good. So it's like they had a very good match, and it's like, oh shit,
MLW. Oh, I got it. Yeah. So yeah, it was good. I mean, if people are, if you have time, I would say, yeah, you can watch it, but it's not going to make our ballot.
WrestleMania weekend is this week, and we didn't really talk a lot about it, but a lot of the New Japan guys, especially the foreigners, have matches coming up on the weekend. So a lot of it's not worth checking out. Some of it might be. The one match that I'm it might be bad, but it also might be great that I've sort of got my eyes on is Gabe Kidd versus Barnett in the main event of Bloodsport. Although that show is basically Bloodsport versus Raw Underground at this point.
Yeah.
It's like a super crossover show between the best of Raw's Underground versus Josh Barnett and his Bloodsport gang, So, but yeah, I'm interested in that. I noticed a lot of the guys that work in the Northwest Indies, and then a lot of them are making their way over to Las Vegas and working like Defy. They're working Collective at GCW and shit like that past few days and going into the next week. But honestly, the best show coming up for the whole week is AEW.
Yeah, Dynamite Spring Breakthrough. Break the WCW record. Ospreay Takeshita.
I'm going to watch that show. There's some shit on there where I'm like, oh, okay, this is like looking like probably a really good show. So
yeah, should be fun. Well, that's going to wrap things up for us this week. Next week we'll be back to review that Road 2 show and preview everything coming up on this Dontaku tour. Remember, if you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. You can also make a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure to connect with us on social media on X and Blue Sky. Follow us at KI Strong Style, at Social Suplex, and at Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, follow us at facebook.com/Social Suplex, and the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group on Reddit on the Pro Black Guy, also Keeping It Strong Style. On YouTube, we are at Social Suplex. You can join our Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. You can email me, jeremy@socialsuplex.com, and check out all the other shows here that we have on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Wednesday Radio, it's by Rich Latta and James Boyd. All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin. Imps, WWE Adventures with the implication of Matthew Mayer. Wrestling Art with Chris Slings, Tall Talk with Ali and Leah, and the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review, and we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.